Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. In the upper left corner, we got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, the Ohio State University's own College Cottrell. He's so excited. His mic's not working. That's amazing. How does that happen?
He can't even come take his victory parade. His mic's not working.
His mic's not working. In the upper right corner, Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, Mr. William Shallcross.
Well, my mic's working. Unfortunately, my team didn't win the national championship. He's still muted. Call me stuffed shell Shally tonight.
Whoa. Don't be eating on camera. Get that stuff away.
He might be back.
We'll find out. Cottrell, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Oh, man.
There's no microphone. There's no microphone for Cottrell. This has got to be like the worst nightmare for a guy that just wins the national championship. Change his name to Champ. He has no mic. But I'm sure he'll get his audio figured out. He'll get situated and he'll be on here shortly. But we got a lot to get into tonight. And we got a brand new audience that's going to be checking us out tonight based off of a video I made. So around 7:20, I'm guessing about 7:20, I'll have to make a public service announcement. Cottrell, just give me a signal when you feel like your microphone's going to be working again, and we'll go to you. You ready? This thumbs up. All right. So the national championship's where we got to start, right? What's where we got to start. So, like, maybe we'll let him get his mic situated. We could talk about the game, and then he can come in and take his celebratory roses. Shally, I watched that football game, and it looked to me like, and I'm going to go right to you, and you can break it down. But it looked to me like Notre Dame came out on that first drive. And I even texted you guys. I said, that's not sustainable. There's no way they're going to be able to run the ball with Riley Leonard 8 times. I think he threw up on the sideline after. Like, he was gassed, bro. He was dead. He was hit. But they scored. All grit, all determination, all fight. And it was like the little engine that could. Are we watching the little Giants beat the Cowboys? Like, I don't know what we were watching, but I felt like Notre Dame was the little engine that could that first drive. But reality sunk in, right? Ohio State's the better team. They're the better offense. They're the better defense. They're the better overall group. And that was very evident during that football game. Now, the thing that stood out to me was in the second half when it was 28-10, and to me it was very obvious that Ohio State was in control of the game. For whatever reason, Chip Kelly and Ryan Day decided they just didn't want to, I don't know, like they just didn't want to score anymore. It was very conservative play calling. It was very, I guess the right way to put it would be, it was almost playing not to lose with a huge lead. But, 3rd and 11, after 2 awful calls, 3rd and 11, Will Howard drops back and just throw it up there. Jeremiah Smith somewhere throws a dime. Jeremiah Smith catches it, and that's all she wrote. 34-23. That was it. Shall, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big things for me is I definitely question the strategy. I think obviously they looked great in the first drive, like you said, with whatever they scripted, obviously worked. To think you were going to beat Ohio State with Riley Leonard, running like that or throwing like that all night, I question it. I think once you take a step back and look at the entire game, as much as I like him, I think Ryan Day completely outcoached Freeman. I don't know how your best player on the field, Jeremiah Love, gets 4 touches. It's a lot to unpack. I question a lot of the stuff on the Notre Dame side. You mentioned that big 3rd down. How you leave that kid on an island with Jeremiah Smith with no safety help, 10-yard cushion. The football's going there. That's where it's going to go. That's reprehensible to me. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse you could give me that would make any kind of sense. They'd been blitzing all night and it was not getting home. So for them to run it there and leave that kid on an island with the best receiver in the country is it's indefensible. Like I said, I think certain aspects of the game. I think Notre Dame. I give them credit for not rolling over, and you brought up the whole, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. I think Notre Dame was really just kind of, or Ohio State was just kind of really like bleed the clock out, like get a couple first downs, keep the clock running. Just the faster it runs, the faster we get out of here and we get our trophy. And they got a little too conservative, in hindsight. And Notre Dame put that one drive together, got another field goal, went down and scored after that, and then it started to get a little, at least interesting. So I give them credit for not rolling over, but if you watch that game, it's really hard to come to any other conclusion than Ohio State was definitely the better football team on both sides of the ball. They were better coached. They have a better coach, and that's not saying Freeman won't get there one day, but you could tell Ryan Day, had a little bit more experience and coached a better football game, had a better strategy. And obviously, that's a little easier to say when you have the better players, I guess. But that being said, I thought he coached a good football game for the most part, and like I said, I picked them to be in the year because with what they brought in and the players they had coming back, it was very reminiscent of the Michigan model from the year before, and I thought they were going to be able to do that. Judkins had a huge game. Travion still played well, and when he had his spots, and you got to take your hat off to Will Howard, man. I mean, it's the kid played within the framework pretty much all year long. Had another good game. I started the game 12 for 12, I think, before he had an incompletion. He did exactly what they brought him in to do. He was a bridge quarterback that was going to give them a chance to win the championship, and here they are. So you got to tip your cap to Will Howard, and it's congrats to Cottrell and Ohio State.
Cottrell, nothing.
There he is.
He's here.
Working out. Okay, good. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack there. I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing is that, of course, you look at how the season ultimately unfolded there. You get the second loss to Michigan, and Ryan Day's up against it. I was one of the main ones on this show on Coast to Coast. I said every chance I could, Ryan Day had to either beat Michigan or win a national championship. Those were your only two options to be coach at Ohio State. And every week I knew they wouldn't. After they beat Oregon, I knew he wouldn't have gotten fired. But I honestly would not have changed my stance on that. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago with Pittsburgh. The standard is the standard, that kind of thing. And I think Ryan Day realizes that, and it was cool to see afterwards that it came out that after that Michigan game, they had a players only meeting plus Ryan Day. Ryan Day was the only coach that was there, and he was like, "Hey guys, look, I messed up." It was a lot of yelling, a lot of crying. They had it, heart to heart. He's like, "Look, guys, I messed up. This is on me." Players were able to get out all their frustrations, and clearly you see it's worked. And in the playoff, they look like a completely different team I expected them to look like pretty much all year there. And the only time they were trailing the entire playoffs was after that first Notre Dame drive when they went up 7-0. Outside of that, Ohio State had never found themselves in a position where they were losing a football game in the college football playoffs. So you look at that stretch of dominance there, and I give all the credit in the world to Ryan Day in that situation. Because the expectations were high. It was a championship or bust team. You heard all year about how much money they spent on the roster, although most of it was just retaining a lot of the players. You bring in Caleb Downs and Quinshawn and Will Howard, which are huge additions, and I don't think this job could have got done without those guys. But I think it's important to Bill's point about the Michigan model. A lot of those guys came back to school. 19 of the guys had been here for 2 or more seasons. They had, I believe it's 15 guys that were seniors that had played all 4 years here that contributed significant playing time. So, you look at those guys and, it's for a team that has to leave Columbus with no gold pants for beating Michigan. You look at it, you bring home the national championship. All is forgiven. So many guys on that team are going to go down as legends in the Columbus books. Jack Sawyer being one of them. Of course, Emeka Egbuka, never been a number one option his whole entire 4 years at Ohio State, is the all-time leader in receptions for Ohio State, and is going to be looked at as one of the most decorated receivers to come through the program there. So can't say enough about the game itself there. Bill already hit on a lot of the points there, but definitely want to show some love to the roster itself because, I mean, you lose to Michigan 4 years in a row, and this upcoming year when you were 19.5-point favorites or 20.5-point, whatever the number was, it's a lot to unpack there. But they came out, they handled their business. I'd argue that they had the toughest road of anybody to get all the way there, going through Oregon, then Texas, then Notre Dame. So they definitely earned it, and I couldn't be happier.
I don't disagree with you. I think they definitely had the toughest road to get there. I don't think anybody could argue that. I think that they earned that toughest road by losing in the regular season, but all said and done, I mean, good for them, right? Getting that win, it's a huge thing for Ohio State. I do say this, and Stephen Chambers brought this up earlier, and I didn't want to talk about it until we got to that point. Notre Dame's DC, Al Golden. We know Al Golden, who Al Golden is. New DC of the Cincinnati Bengals. And the landscape of college football is changing every year. Every year is going to be a different atmosphere. Every year is going to be a different team. Obviously, next year, Ohio State will have another new quarterback. Michigan should have a new quarterback starting for them. A lot of these teams turn over quickly. The question I have, and I think it's kind of a setup question. I don't mean to be rude when I say this. Winning a national championship probably means more than anything in the world. Does it somewhat dim the light for those Ohio State players to leave never beaten Michigan?
For them, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, when you come back to school, I mean, of the last 50 years, there's probably only a handful of guys that don't have at least one win over Michigan, just because of, the dominance before this 4-year stretch there. So I think long-term wise, it's definitely going to be something when they get back together 10 years and celebrate the reunion for the team and all that stuff. They'll be like, yeah, damn, all you guys got these gold pants. We don't have any, we don't even know what these look like essentially. So, I mean, I think that plays a factor into it, but in the bigger picture, this is what these guys came back to school for. Of course you want that win. You want that win almost as much as you want a national championship, but at the end of the day, you have one. There are a lot of Ohio State teams that don't have one. This being the first one since the 2014 one. So, I mean, there's people with 3 pairs of gold pants that I'm sure would trade them for a national championship. So I think it's on a certain day they'll care about it. On other days they'll be like, we got what we came back for. Especially
for a guy like Will Howard, who's not going to be a pro football quarterback. He just won't.
I will say he made himself a lot of money though this playoff, because he went from being a 6th or 7th round pick to maybe going 3rd or 4th round.
And that's fair. And he might get on. I mean, listen, Sean Clifford made an NFL roster for a couple of years, but to me, a lot of these guys could have been playing their last down of football that matters to be able to walk out with a national championship. Good for them. And to the Notre Dame team, let me just give credit where credit's due. That team battled all year. And we talked about earlier, Chow, you said something earlier. I'm not saying that you're wrong, because I think by point you're right. Marcus Freeman did get out coached in this game by Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. But I think that in Marcus Freeman's eyes, it was the only way that their defense could get home versus Ohio State was to blitz. Now, I would have changed that thought process on 3rd and 11, right? There's no way in the world I don't have 2 people on Jeremiah Smith. But you noticed the entire game, when they double-teamed Jeremiah Smith, they found other people. It's funny because on that first big 3rd down in the game for Ohio State, it's not Ibuka, it's not Jeremiah Smith.
Brandon Ennis.
Who?
Brandon Ennis caught the drag.
No, this is a deep in route. It was I think it was your 3rd wide receiver.
Oh, Cardinal Tate caught the
Tate.
Deep in,
it's just they found a way, and give Will Howard credit, right? Because he's a guy in my eyes, not a great quarterback, not a great college quarterback. But this college football playoff, he definitely handled business and threw the ball when he needed to the players he needed to throw the ball to. All credit to Ohio State. Like I said, just like last year when I rooted for Michigan to win the national championship for my man Shally, this year I was in unison rooting for Ohio State when they got to the national championship to beat Notre Dame. Y'all are my family. Unless you're playing a team that I've picked to win the national championship, or my team, I'm always going to root for your happiness over, even though it's a rivalry.
Fair enough. And, definitely appreciate that. It's funny to see because you were on the Oregon side the first time, then you were on the Texas side the game after that. Then you hopped on. I mean, I get it. You picked Oregon before the year, and then you ultimately had Texas going to the Natty. So definitely can understand that there. But
I'm a huge Quinn Ewers fan. I've been a huge Quinn Ewers fan since he left Ohio State.
I was a fan
that,
too.
So I get it. So, but with that being said, the same thing happened last year with Michigan. I was rooting for Texas to win the national championship when they were in the semifinals, but when they lost, done, no more.
I was one thing I was shocked about. I saw today. And this isn't a shot or a slight or anything. I was fully expecting this game viewership wise to go like through the roof, and it didn't.
Me too.
I think last year was an average of like a little over 25, and they were a little over 22 on Monday. I thought with those fan bases, it was going to be. I thought there was a chance to break records. I was shocked to see that today.
Honestly, though, I think a big part of that is which is they already are trying to figure out how they can make it happen. I think it was the impact of the NFL playoffs, like going deeper into the season this year. We kind of talked about it like leading up to it. The semis didn't really feel like, they were 2 games going for the national championship with it being on the Thursday and Friday. And then at the end of it, you ultimately have like right after the wild card weekend, NFL was pushing that so much, like, all weekend or whatever. And then ultimately you have, Ohio State playing on Monday. I almost feel like it was the forgotten game. Not that everyone forgot about it, but in other years, it was like you get so much national championship coverage. But because we're in the thick of the playoffs here, in the divisional round and like going into this week, it almost felt like it was like, all right, we'll sprinkle in Natty Talk when we can, but it's NFL, throw in a little Natty Talk, and then go from there. You'd think with the 2 brands, it wouldn't really matter, but I think they definitely played a part.
I need everyone to stop. I need everybody to stop what they're doing right now. Please stop what you're doing right now for the next 30 seconds. If you don't mind, if everybody that's in the chat, please share us out to your Facebook page. Share us out to a group if you can. Give us a like in the chat. I'm in share jail right now, so I'm trying to get this out to the masses as best as possible. So Kyle, Tom, Alex, anybody that's in the chat, I appreciate you. You can tap the like button for a minute. Give us a share. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt. Alex said Oregon Ohio State was the most watched game. It makes sense. I want to respond to your point. Right? Well, I want to respond to your point though. I think people thought it was a foregone conclusion who's going to win the football game. 9.5 point spread didn't help that,
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, you look at rivals and you look at teams with fan bases, that are that big. I still would. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State this year did almost the same amount as it did last year, and Ohio State was three touchdown favorites.
But I don't think that other viewers. I think Ohio State and Michigan, Notre Dame fans were definitely tuned in. The way you get huge ratings isn't Ohio State fans and Notre Dame fans tune in. It's getting USC fans to tune in. It's getting Penn State fans to tune in. It's getting Texas fans to tune in. And when you have a situation where you have Ohio State versus Notre Dame and it's a 9.5 point spread, I don't know, man. I just feel like the Ohio State-Oregon game drew the best numbers because the spread was 2.5 points and no one knew who was going to win the football game.
Oh, it was also the beginning of the year, and it was also on a Saturday. They have to get the national championship game off of Monday night, and if that means Saturday night, then so be it. But Monday night is just it's not it's just not conducive for a lot of people to sit down and be able to watch it for 4 hours. I mean, that's how long it takes. Like I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. And I know with them going into NFL territory more and more now with the extended playoff, this is going to keep happening. But they have to figure something else out. It can't be on Monday night anymore.
Which is they seem like they're having the conversations with the NFL because it almost felt like that this was, I don't want to say it was the inevitable, but the conversations were had before they even were playing the game. They're like, yeah, we got to figure out how we can partner with the NFL to figure out our schedule moving
Well,
forward.
they have this silly handshake thing where they kind of agree not to go head to head when they don't absolutely have to. And again, if you're investing $7 billion a year in these bowl games and everything else, I mean, you got to do what's best, to bring in the most viewers. And on top of everything else, I mean, you have inauguration. It was a lot going on Monday. So I think that's just bad timing. Obviously, that's only going to happen once every 4 years. But and then you have bad weather the night before. I think it was a perfect storm. But I really, really want them to find a way to get it off of Monday night.
Tiny checking in. It's hard for people who work the next morning. I get it.
Yeah, it is. If especially if it's a close game, like you're committing to staying up till 11:30 midnight to watch the end of that game. Yeah.
Yep.
Gentlemen, anything deeper college football? We're gonna send you right to coast. Saturday morning, they're gonna be. I don't know if this is like your last show of the season.
Second to last.
No, second to last.
But make sure you tune in Saturday morning to listen to these guys. They had a great show this past week, thousands of views, and they're putting together great content each week. So tune in to Coast Saturday morning. Cottrell, I'll give you final thoughts on college football before we move forward.
The only thing I was going to add is we have a winner of Bowl Mania, and it happens to be the champ. We took care of business.
Somebody tied you.
Bowl Mania. We also did finish tied with Wilson, but hey, when we got the T for one. You have the trophy. It says winner on it.
No,
so,
the tiebreaker says Wilson won because he had the right points.
Oh, get out of here!
I'm telling you, bro. You can help me out.
Did we even do points?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yep, tiebreaker. Wilson won.
I didn't even have a points tiebreaker.
I had 50. I had mine right there. See?
You guys are all lucky I forgot to do it the first 2 days. That's all I'm saying.
I just know I'm top of the mountain, so.
Wilson won. It is what it is. Just don't know what to tell you. We got to get Wilson on the show. He's been in the messages of Wire2Wire, so we'll talk about that. We'll figure out how that works out. And you'll see Wilson on an upcoming show. But with that being said, got to move to the real sport. Got to move to the real NFL, the professionals that are playing. Tiny said you're a winner in her eyes.
Yes, that's because she sees the game clearly.
Listen, I'm going to say something right now. This is the truth, right? You did win. You won out of us three. But I don't know. I just think that in your world, you've already won enough. Ohio State won the national championship. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I don't need to win the playoff.
No such thing. No such thing.
Billy Brancato in the chat, Shally with the excuses. Typical. All right, NFL guys, NFL. And before we get into, so here's my breakdown of it, right? Recap, coaching changes, trivia, preview. That's where I want to go with this, okay?
I think we should go coaching changes first, because then the recaps would lead us back into the previews. That's
fine. I don't really want to talk about the coaching changes. I think they're stupid. No, but with that being said, Cottrell's got two of them right at this point. You projected both coaches in the correct spots that they've been at. Aaron Glenn to the New York Jets and Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears. Did you not project that?
No, I had Rex Ryan.
I had Rex Ryan.
Yeah, so we were.
You have Aaron Glenn, Shally?
Yeah, we all had Rex Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. We had Patricia and Ben Johnson though.
Yeah.
Well, I had Ben Johnson. I thought one
of
you
did too. Patricia's not a coach.
Yeah, Vrabel. New England likes to recycle their coaches. Same thing. They got McDaniels back.
They're trying to win one
back
without.
All together.
They're trying to win one without Bill.
Almost the same coaches though. But
yeah.
Let's talk about the Ben Johnson move first. He went to his press conference. He was complimentary of Dan Campbell. He's complimentary of Kevin O'Connell, and then he said, "And I enjoy beating Green Bay twice a year." I thought that was interesting. Took a little shot
specifically.
100%. I'll say this, right? The Ben Johnson hire is the first time I've ever agreed with a Bears hire, like ever. I didn't agree with the Nagy hire. I didn't agree with the John Fox hire. I obviously didn't agree with the Eberflus hire. I was on the Brian Flores bus there. I agree with the Ben Johnson hire. You have to get someone. Now, the next thing Ryan Poles needs to do, hey, we have so-and-so cap money. Why don't we invest in our offensive line? Why don't we protect our quarterback? Ben Johnson just had a successful season with the Detroit Lions, and the best part of that offense isn't their wide receiving group. It's not their running back room. It's not their quarterback. Best part of that Detroit offense is that offensive line. Ben Johnson needs to make sure that team invests in the offensive line. Chicago can be great. This marriage can work, but you have to build through the trenches. Cottrell, you were so on this Ben Johnson thing a while ago. Your thoughts on the move?
I mean, I think this is the perfect match there. I think Ben Johnson's the guy who I think when we look at a quarterback like Jared Goff, I think no one ever thought he didn't have talent. It was a matter of putting it all together to make it work on the field. That ultimately that's the reason why he had to leave LA. Sean McVay didn't feel like he was good enough to win a Super Bowl there, and it obviously worked out for them there. And then I think in Detroit, Ben Johnson realizes that, hey, this is Jared Goff's skill set. This is what we have here. This is how we're going to make it work. Like, obviously, it wasn't something that really just happened overnight there, but over time, you saw it happen. And Jared Goff is a vet. He was a former #1 overall pick. Like, the talent had always been there. It was just a matter of putting the product on the field consistently. And Ben Johnson was able to get that out of him. So, I mean, I look at it like you look at this Chicago Bears team, and they don't have a void of talent. Like, the talent is there. We can go over the receivers they have, Allen and, Dunze and DJ Moore. Like, we can go over that until we're blue in the face. DeAndre Swift, we saw what kind of year he had when he was with the Eagles, so we know he has talent. The talent is there. Like you mentioned, though, the offensive line is going to be the big thing. But I also think the creativity of Ben Johnson is going to make it so much easier for Caleb as well, because there's going to be so much stuff now that's schemed open as opposed to Caleb having to be Superman or having to extend plays for 7-8 seconds before making a dumb decision. So for me, I think this is a brilliant move, and I'm already liking what he's putting together as a whole. Dennis Allen coming over to be their DC, I think is a great fit for them. Dennis Allen's one of those guys that stinks as a head coach, but he's a great coordinator. So I think he's going to find himself in a really good spot there with that Chicago defense, because I really think that Chicago team's only a couple pieces away from being a serious contender, especially knowing how much Detroit got gutted from their coaching staff, as a whole.
You're going to find out how good of a coach Dan Campbell really is next season. Lost his offense coordinator, lost his defensive coordinator, lost his defensive line coach.
That's just now.
Find out how good of a coach he really is.
I'm sure Aaron Glenn might pluck somebody from the staff too. Like, Ben might pluck somebody from the staff. Like, it's a lot that can still move too. So they are not out of it just yet.
No, definitely not. Shal, your thoughts on the Ben Johnson move?
No, I mean, I think that's, like I said, it's the one that we all thought needed to happen. You need to bring an offensive guy in, like Cottrell said, you need to bring a guy in that can speak Caleb Williams' language and have somebody that's on the same page with him, and not only, call plays and do certain things certain ways, but be able to explain to him why they're being done that way, and really he's going to be able to talk to Caleb Williams in a way that Matt Eberflus obviously couldn't. And Ben Johnson will obviously design an offense that's going to highlight his strengths and what he does well. And I do agree with you. I think the first thing they have to do is improve the line. They'll be in a prime position to draft somebody in the draft, and then you go out free agent wise and probably shore up the line. I think Chicago will take a noticeable step forward next year. They have a good offense, so weapons wise, I don't think it's going to be an issue. With Ben Johnson kind of starting and right in stride and not missing a beat. Was really interesting to see some of the reports that came out later today, though, that there apparently was some behind the scenes tension with Dan Campbell, and he'd already let the team know he wasn't coming back regardless if he got a head coaching job or not. That I found very interesting. But to your point with the Lions, yeah, I mean we're gonna find out about Dan Campbell, but I think as an OC, I think that's a very, very attractive job. Maybe they even take somebody from another team. Who knows? I think that position will get filled quickly. DC is probably a little bit different, but we'll see. That division is nuts, and it kind of came out of nowhere, if we're being honest. So, it's the best division of football. So it's
not the best division in football. I disagree. The AFC South had more playoff wins. They had 0 playoff wins in that division. Now, you're probably right. I'm just being devil's advocate on that situation. But, like, when you go stinker in the playoffs, you go 0 for 3, you get 3 teams to make it, and all 3 teams lay an egg. Bro. What does Kestrel say? Winning matters, right, bro? Winning matters.
Winning definitely matters, but I also think outside of the Lions, it's not like we all picked the Rams to win. I think that was more of a styles make fights kind of thing. And then the Eagles, we all picked the Eagles to win their game as well.
All 3 teams were favored it. So I don't know what to tell you.
The Packers were favored over the Eagles.
Oh, you're right. The Packers weren't. The Minnesota Vikings were. The Detroit Lions were. I apologize. I don't know why I got the Packers mixed up with the Buccaneers. In my head, I was like, fuck Tampa Bay instead of Green Bay.
Nah. Yeah, no, I definitely I get what you're saying there. But I think when next year, I'll be very curious to see ultimately what Detroit looks like, because obviously we saw how good they were, at least in the regular season this past year. But I mean, if Chicago is what I think they could be, what we thought they could be, beginning of this year, even with Eberflus, I mean, I think you got the chance for any of those 4 teams to have 10 plus wins next year. So,
Steven, I love you, but I hate how this stuff comes out after they lose. He looked fine. Sorry. Don't want to hear it. Playing with crack. Stop it. Listen, Kelly Stafford put that report out. He probably cracked him on the last hit that Jalen Carr hit him on. I don't really care. Jalen Hurts is playing with a torn ACL on his knee. We'll find that out after they lose in the playoffs. I don't want to hear excuses. They lost. I heard all week how the Rams are going to come into Philadelphia and win. They didn't. Sorry, I got a little cocky there for a minute. I was a little fired up. But there you go. That's my man. But all right, next coaching change. Aaron Glenn over to the New York Jets. As happy as I am with Ben Johnson, and as much as I am a proponent for diversity coach hiring, this is going to be, guys, I'm calling it now. It's going to be another one and done. It's going to be another one of those coaches that goes into a bad organization, doesn't have a quarterback, and they're going to fire him way too quick. They're not going to allow him to get his pieces in the place, and we'll be looking at this like it was another situation that just happened with Antonio Pierce or just happened with Gerard Mayo, where you get 1 year, minority coach. We hired one. Give you a 3rd-round draft pick. We hired one. And then they just, next year he's gone. The Jets are hiring another coach. I personally hate this fit. I think they needed an offensive guy to draft a quarterback. That's where my mind was. But I thought Rex Ryan could change the culture there. I don't know if Aaron Glenn can. Your thoughts on the pick of Aaron Glenn is the next. By the way, also, I think it's the first time a guy has been hired as a DC to a head coach without a top 10 defense. The Lions did not have that. I understand injuries played a part to that, but I don't remember the last time that happened.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they were trending that way. They were trending that way before the injuries happened, though. They were trending top 10.
Yeah, where was Detroit, week 12 before they just started dropping like flies? I agree with you, though. I hate this hire. And I'll tell you why. I hate it for Aaron Glenn because this is his first crack at it. And like you said, I think he's set up for failure from the absolute get-go. And it's going to be one best case scenario, probably 2 and done. And then he goes back into the bucket of, well, that guy had his shot. He didn't succeed. He didn't do it. He's not getting another chance. And that's the exact road I feel like we're heading down. You don't have a quarterback. You're late in the game. I don't know what kind of OC you're going to get. You're not going to draft one. And I don't know who is out there worth a damn that you're going to get free agency or have to trade for. And then you mentioned the biggest thing. It's kind of like the inmates running the asylum over there right now, depending on who you listen to. Yeah, the culture. So I think he's walking into, I guess they offered it and he thought this was his shot and he took it. And, I give him credit for doing that and having the courage to take it. But at the same time, I feel like he's walking into an unwinnable situation.
I do want to talk about some fun situations that have been happening in the NFL.
Can I talk about Glenn?
Yeah.
My bad. I apologize.
Damn. Don't let the champ talk? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, for me, I've been going back and forth with it. Like, I think it's like on the surface, I was like, why would they make that hire? Like, they clearly need to get an offensive mind. They need to fix. I mean, you had Robert Saleh there, defensive minded coach. They were great defensively, and you still couldn't make the playoffs while he was there. Like, why are you repeating that cycle? But then on the flip side of it, I really thought about it, and I was like, well, maybe, they look at what's going on around the league. And as much as we love to talk about the offensive guys, right now, the thing is defensive-minded head coaches. Like, that can turn it around quick. I'm not saying Dan Quinn's obviously not the reason why Jaden Daniels is having a great year this year, but Dan Quinn, first-year coach, he gets his quarterback. He brings in the right offensive coordinator to work with that guy, and they're in the NFC Championship game. You look at on the flip side of it, 2 years ago, the Texans went and hired DeMeco Ryans. We thought that was the right move for them, but he's a defensive-minded guy. He gets his quarterback. They bring in Slowick as the OC, and it's worked, and they've made the playoffs back-to-back years and won a playoff game in each of those years. So I look at it like I'm optimistic that I think it can work, even though you don't have that quarterback. You just need to bring in the right OC and make sure you get the quarterback that fits your scheme, because I think that's what's going to be important there. But on the flip side of it, I look at it like this is the Jets. This feels like definition of insanity. You had Saleh in the building. You let him pick his quarterback. It didn't work out because he never had the offensive-minded guy in the building to make it work out. You go get the vet quarterback that you don't think really needs an offensive mind to scheme stuff open for. And clearly that was a disaster. So now you're really at this point up shit's creek without a paddle, in the quarterback market, because you don't have any money and your pick isn't high enough to get one of those marquee, top end quarterbacks. So I think I'm very 50-50. I'm split down the middle. That's not my take on a lot, but I'm optimistic because I see the success from the other guys, but at the same time, I don't see the Jets doing anything right, so I don't know if it actually plays out that way.
I apologize, Control.
Do you think this makes him almost desperate enough that they have to bring Rodgers back next year?
No. I think Aaron Glenn was brought in to be a culture guy because he's coming from the ultimate culture, what's going on in Detroit. I thought that's the reason they brought him in, to change the culture. I think that the Jets always rest their hat on their defense, but to your point about DeMeco Ryans, we all know the name Bobby Slowick for a reason. He's been a great OC over there with CJ Stroud. And you look at, the things that's going on in Detroit, even Buffalo, right? We talk about Sean McDermott being the defensive guy, but they really didn't make this success until Joe Brady was there or when Brian Dable was there. Offensive coordinators are so important. I'll be very interested to see who the offensive coordinator is that Aaron Glenn hires.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the most important thing in this, because you have to get the right OC, but then also, once free agency rolls around and the draft comes around, who do they have? Because I don't think Aaron Rodgers can come back. Like, I think that's a route they don't want to go down because you're going to pay him a ton of money. Garrett Wilson's going to request a trade, and Devontae Adams is already quietly basically said, I don't want to come back next year. So, I think that could have major repercussions for the offense.
But here's the thing. We mentioned all the elite OCs. None of them are available. So you're still going to have to find a guy that's ready to take that next step, like a quarterback coach or, something like that everybody thinks the world of and is capable of making that jump to OC. But if it's not Rodgers, who? And
a quarterback?
Again, I'm not the Aaron Rodgers guy, but I don't know. I don't know realistically there's a better option.
If you bring back Aaron Rodgers, you can all but hand Garrett Wilson to the door. He's leaving. There's no way that happens.
And I'm not saying it has to be a vet, but to Gene's point that we talk about, it feels like week after week after week. Maybe you marry your coach to your quarterback. Maybe you bring in an offensive-minded guy. And, while I don't think this class, I think it's loaded with a lot of average quarterbacks. Maybe they see something in a guy that, we don't. Maybe they have that that guy that maybe they're high on Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn can be a very good pro down the line. I just think he needs a lot of work. Maybe they're high on Jalen Milroe. I don't think he's that guy, but maybe they have a plan for him. So I mean, I just think that'll be what you're going to need to be able to see.
I just think if you do it that way, I mean, you're literally your first day that you're literally putting all your eggs in a basket of a kid, drafting a kid that you're probably going to overdraft that you shouldn't be taking.
Yeah, and that's going to be a mistake. But here's a small sliver of what I think might happen, and I think I'm just small prediction because I want to put it out there. I think that the Brian Schottenheimer thing, being the Dallas Cowboys' next head coach, is a fox. I think they're waiting for the Eagles to be eliminated to name Kellen Moore their head coach. And I think when that happens, Brian Schottenheimer could be the next offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. That's kind of where my mind goes. Established OC to move over to a new organization. Just where my head goes.
I just still get the feeling I don't think Kellen Moore is going back to Dallas.
I do. Jerry loves him. We'll see. We'll find out. And that's kind of a funny thing. Brian Schottenheimer, the OC, is the odds-on favorite right now to be the Cowboys' next head coach. They can't screw up anymore, can they? This is unreal. I love it.
I think big thing for me, though, with that is, I mean, I think you look at Slowick, you look at Ben Johnson. A lot of these guys essentially came out of nowhere. So I don't even know if I'm not even saying Schottenheimer will be a retread there because obviously he has the experience, but I wouldn't even just go with the guy that's the best available. I go with the guy who I feel like is going to, one, help my culture, and then two, give me the best chance to develop whoever I have come through the door next. So, me personally, I didn't know of Slowick before he got to Houston and, had the success that he did there. So I don't think you necessarily have to go that route. Obviously, Detroit had a ton of great coaches on the staff there. Ben Johnson, Glenn, you talk about the DC going over to New England, and I'm sure quarterback coach, running back coach, like their staff was so good. Essentially, they gave Deuce Staley the door. Like that's ultimately how good their staff was. So I think your options are going to be out there for sure.
Let's talk about the Jags for 1 second, guys. The Jacksonville Jaguars fired their general manager about 2 weeks too late, but I think I know why, right? I think I understand why he was finally let go. Trent Baalke has been fired as the general manager for the Jaguars after Liam Cohen has basically removed himself from the head coaching search for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think, just me, that he sold Shad Khan that Liam Cohen was going to be the next head coach. When Liam Cohen pulled out, like I'm not getting involved in this organization. Shad Khan was just like, I'm done with this. I'm getting rid of you as the GM. We're going to get a new GM, new head coach over here. Your thoughts on this? Trent Baalke being removed 2.5 weeks too late? Probably too late, if we're being honest.
Khan kind of hinted at this. I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the most, awkward interviews I've ever seen. They were both on video interview. And they asked him, if his job was safe. And he kind of said, without saying it, like, if something better came along or I have to make other decision, then no, I'll fire him. It's pretty much what he said. Yeah. And 2.5 weeks later, here we are. I think you're 100% right, Gene. I think, when Cohen dropped out, he was like, it's probably something to do with Baalke. I'm going to get rid of him. And then, which you probably wanted to do anyway, bring a coach and a GM on at the same time. You have your quarterback, or, we think you have your quarterback in-house. Bring a GM and a coach on at the same time that share the same vision, that are going to be on the same page, and you start to build your team that way. It's the way to go. Jacksonville, for all intents and purposes, has too much talent on that roster already for them to be the way they've been the last 2 years, if we're being 100% honest. And Houston's not going anywhere anytime soon. If Indy ever figures out their quarterback situation, they're better than they are, and Tennessee's just Tennessee right now. But it's a somewhat winnable division, or you should at least be competing for playoff spots if Trevor Lawrence is your quarterback and some of the other talent they have on that team.
I still think Joe Brady is the move. If I'm the Jaguars, I bring in a GM and I hire Joe Brady to figure out my quarterback situation. That you see what he did with Josh Allen. And when Ken Dorsey took over, Josh Allen looked like a bad quarterback for about a good year. Joe Brady came in that situation, and Josh Allen is now in the MVP conversation and is the favorite to win MVP. Joe Brady's got to be the guy there, right? Am I nuts to say that?
I think
you're Joe Brady, right? Like, I know what Cottrell said. It looks like it maps out perfectly for him to go to New Orleans. But if I'm Joe Brady, I got a quarterback here or I got to find one. I'd rather go to a situation where I have a quarterback.
But to Cottrell's point,
and to your point,
do you want to go work for dysfunction, or do you want to go work for an organization, a family that constantly, for the most part, gets it right, or at least knows what they're doing?
Do you think hiring Trent Baalke might be the move to get Joe Brady to go there?
Maybe, but it's not just Trent Baalke either, man. It's ownership. I mean, how long's Jacksonville been a shit show now?
Forever.
I mean, they play 2 to 3 games a year overseas. They volunteer for them. They
got to put signs up on the one corner of their field
because they can't sell it out even when they're good. When you have a kid that at one point everybody thought was going to be the face of the NFL or one of them for the next coming decade, they got issues, man. They got issues, and again, do you want to go work for that, or do you want to go to New Orleans for a family that runs the organization well? Bite the bullet for a year until you can get a quarterback, and then go from there, and a way better fan base. So, I don't think it's such a slam dunk.
And I think the other thing too is that with just looking at it again outside perspective, I don't know if the reason why Baalke got fired was because of the head coaching decision or the head coaching process, because Khan had already came out and said that he really wasn't going to be that involved in picking the head coach, and then also doubled down on that and said that after we get the head coach, all the GM decisions are essentially going to come back to me anyway. Before I sign any checks, I'm going to make sure that everything's vetted and go from there. So I really don't think that Baalke said too much like in these coaching interviews. If anything, he was there, he gave some handshakes and asked a couple of questions, but I think Khan was dealing literally with everything when it comes to these interviews, because of how dismissive he was during the interview after the season was over. He basically, like Bill said, he already came out and said that if something better comes along, we're comfortable moving on. So with knowing that, I don't think they would have given him too much input in finding the next head coach who you already knew was going to be there longer than what Baalke's tenure would be moving forward. So I don't think it was too much of that. I just think it was one of those things like he finally realized, like the owner finally realized, like, what are you here for? Like they're probably just day to day. And he's like, you know what? I'm finding our next head coach. I'm going to be making decisions for our roster. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. You're really just in the way. Like I might as well bring in somebody that I can have a collaboration with. We said it on the show all along. It never made sense for them to keep him. I will say the only thing, you say 2 weeks too late. The only reason why I won't go that far is because on the GM side, nothing's really moved at this point. I do understand you want to have your GM and your coaches together, but
you're losing opportunities to get head coaches though. Like Ben Johnson, if granted, Ben Johnson wasn't going there, I get it, but Ben Johnson is off the board now. And now any day, the next head coach could be named.
Yeah, no,
they have to name a GM before they name a head coach. You got to get a guy. I mean, I guess you can hire a head coach and then name a GM.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could
probably backwards.
I think you can, because of how Jack Hahn basically already said that he's going to do it, where he's going to be controlling the money and the movements. I mean, I think you can hire your head coach first in this case, because it seems like the GM's just going to be a figurehead anyway.
We talked about that. I don't think AG would have been a good fit for them to begin with, though. Kneecap biting. We talked about AG signing with the Jets. Guys, we got to move. We'll talk about more coaching situations as they come up through weeks on Wire2Wire, but we got to move. Here's where we're at, right? And I'm going to go in order in these games that we talked about, and I don't think we're going to get through one game before we get to trivia, and that's fair. Trivia is going to happen in 10 minutes. But what I will say is this. I'm not one of those guys. I haven't been one of those guys. The league's catered to Patrick Mahomes. I haven't been one of those guys.
That what?
The league's catered to Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
I haven't been one of those guys. But, man, he did not do himself any favors. And everything I see, I don't want to be this guy, right? Because when you see greatness, there's going to be something kooky and weird about it, right? Michael Jordan's a weirdo. He was ultra competitive. He'd fight people in practice. LeBron James is a weirdo. He's always been a weirdo. Greatness, Tom Brady, psycho. We all know the situations Tom Brady would go through. Patrick Mahomes, every single time I see something about Pat, I like him a little less. Like, let's just say I started here, right? I loved Patrick Mahomes. I still compare him to Michael Jordan. I still think he's something we've never seen before. But the way he draws penalties and the way, like, I feel like that the Chiefs get like a little bit of a slighted edge on calls. And then to add to it, after you get two 15-yard penalties in a football game that were both bogus, it both really hurt the Texans to begin with, then you flop on the sideline. Now, even Pat came out and said, I probably shouldn't have did that. That's probably the best thing he said. But he followed it up with saying, I don't think we get controversial. I don't think we get the benefit of calls. The refs have a tough job and blah, blah, blah. When I watched that Texans-Chiefs game, I don't think that the Texans win the football game if it's not for those calls. But it's really tough for me to watch that football game and say that it wasn't swayed, that it didn't impact the football game, that it gave Houston less of a chance. And Will Anderson's now been fined for it. And
Joe Mixon's
been fined for it. They all came out after the game. We knew we were up against. We understood what we were going into. It just seems like they're on the right end of a lot of really big controversial calls. And maybe this is sour grapes as an Eagles fan, going back to the Super Bowl, to the worst defensive holding call in the history of the sport. Maybe that's what it is. But I feel like
the NFL has a vested interest in the outcome of Chief games.
Yes.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, if as a coach of teams in the playoffs, if I'm playing the Chiefs, whenever Pat is doing any of that stuff, playing around on the sideline, you knock his head off. I don't care about the penalty; they're going to call it anyway. If you gently tap them, they're gonna call it. If you get them low and wrap them up, they're gonna call it. So knock them out every time. I know you can't. You can't say that because of the whole Bounty Gate and the Greg Williams situation from 2010. But I don't care if I'm in these NFL locker rooms. That's how that's going to stop. If you just like Will Anderson, if you get your money's worth, you're coming in free, even if it's late. They're going to call it anyway. You put your helmet right underneath his chin, and you make him think about what he's doing. If he's playing around on the sidelines and you're on the backside and you're chasing the play down, and he's about to go out of bounds, you make sure he thinks about that every single time he's going over the sidelines. That's the only way it's going to stop at this point. You don't want to coach. You don't want to coach bad penalties. So in a sense, you do also have to be smart. But at the same time, anytime I would tell my team every single week, there is no gray area. It is black or it is white. If he's playing around on the sideline, you knock his head off. If he's about to slide and you can see that, then you let him slide and you go from there. For me, I'm eliminating all gray area. I'm going to get my money's worth for the penalties every single time. 15 yards is fine. If he has to think about that hit for the rest of the game, it is a penalty well worth it in my book.
The first one, where they thought he hit him helmet to helmet, it actually looked close. From the ref's angle, I could almost understand that one, and I didn't want to jump on it. It was a bad call. But the second one where he was dancing around and you had every opportunity to slide, every opportunity to get out of bounds. And then when finally he gets lined up, he drops down and they go above him and don't hit him. I was losing my mind. Shally, your thoughts on that?
I agree with everything both of you said. And I really agree with Cottrell's point. If you're going to give me the 15 yards, then I'm getting my money's worth for it. I'm going to hit him hard, and like Cottrell said, it's going to at least make him think next time. Do I really want to get popped again here? Or I just want to go out of bounds. The first one, I think what's more upsetting is you have Troy Aikman doing the game, who grew up, played in a era where you could kill the quarterback, and he is up there on air ripping the refs and saying none of these should be penalties. That's not a good look. You guys mentioned Joe Mixon, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., D'Amico Ryans. When they're starting their press conferences and they're talking about officiating, it's a problem. It's a problem. This isn't a new problem either. We've been talking about it since we started the show together. It's been a problem, and it's gotten worse.
And it's not sour grapes either.
It's not
like they're just not about losing.
No. What really did it for me, funny thing is, I mentioned this, I think early last year when that quarterback show came out. I was watching it, and I remember asking you guys right before we went on air if you guys had watched it, what you thought. And I said I actually like Kirk Cousins more after watching the show, and I didn't like Patrick as much. And then Gene brought up the first one, or the third one. That's the one that really pissed me off because he blatantly flopped. He sat on the ground, and when the refs started waving their hands, they were like, "No, get up." Then he just pops up like nothing happened and flips the ball and runs into the huddle. You're actively just trying to draw fouls now. It's not the NBA. It's football, man. The first one was terrible. To Gene's point, from the angle, I kind of get it. But they're also nobody from the booth stopped the game and was no, we need to take another look at this. They're allowed to do it, and they didn't. How was nobody in the booth being that's not targeting? It's not necessarily roughness. Take the flag away. That's why people get up in arms, and that's why people put their tinfoil hats on, and that's why people say what they say. It's hard to watch that game knowing that not only the refs missed it on the field, but knowing that the people up in the booth that can watch it in slow motion have the ability to buzz down and stop the game, and that's not happening. So now you're getting calls wrong on the field. The fail-safe's not working, and then Patrick Mahomes just get 15 yards here, 15 yards there. Enough's enough. And
but I think that's part of the problem, though, Bill. You talk about refs being able to buzz down. It's so unclear because at times it feels like, what I think about the last 15 years, coaches had to challenge certain things, and then they come out and they buzz down and say, expedited review says that this isn't that. But, these helmet-to-helmet hits, to Kyle's point in the chat, he says actually make all things involving QBs reviewable. Technically, if they already call on the field, they can't buzz down and say, this isn't a unnecessary roughness or a roughing the passer penalty. That's not something that can be reviewed there. But it also feels like every time that something like this happens, it's very situation dependent. Sometimes they'll be after expedited review, it's determined the quarterback was a runner, and so the helmet-to-helmet contact was, okay, or whatever the case may be. So, I think you need more clarity there, but two, to your point, you have those guys in place to make sure that they get as much right as they can. Why not add this as something that can be reviewable if you're repeatedly finding yourself in this situation?
I hear you. I do want to take a couple of things in the chat, guys. I apologize, I can't post all the comments, but Derek Dempsey says Denny will fake out of bounds and then run for 20 more yards because they can't hit him.
That's when I'll get hurt, though.
I don't disagree with them. We're going to get into trivia. Then we're going to talk about the Lions Commanders. And then I have my statement after trivia. I do have a statement for all Commanders fans. I hope you're tuning in. I will have my statement for you. We got to get into trivia. Let's get into trivia. I got to put the banner up. The ticker is up. Turn the comments off. And hold on, let me just get this out of here. And I am ready to rock and roll. Comments are off, gentlemen. So I feel free. Charlie doesn't look at me there. I hope not. But for free to answer in the chat. We'll look at it afterwards. We'll post them afterwards. Oh, by the way, Control, did you type the question up?
I did. That's just what I was doing now. I'm locked and loaded.
My bad. All right, so I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, gentlemen. So, in honor of us talking a lot of football, and this is actually going to segue us right into our recaps, which is why I wanted to do recaps afterwards. Sure. The question is, it's NFL this week. We're going to go with the most all-time passing yards for quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl.
Okay.
Did we already do this?
We did not.
I think we did.
We did.
No, because I don't think we did.
I'm almost positive we did.
I think I was the one that asked the question.
Yeah.
Are we sure about this?
I'm almost 100% sure. We can go through it again if you want. I don't mind.
I feel like we did the first round picks, like lowest first round picks.
We did that too. I'm agreeing with Gene too. I think it was Gene's question.
I think it was my question. Actually, if you guys give me 10 seconds, I could probably just check if you don't mind.
Sure.
I have my notes from my picks. Just give me 10 seconds. I think it was in November. I mean, I'm fine with doing it again, but I just want to make sure we didn't do it already.
I remember some of the names do overlap from lists that we've had in the past, but I don't.
All right, I'll answer this question right now. No, never mind. I think he might be right. I think it might be a different question.
Yeah, I don't think we've done this list.
I think we've done a different question.
All right. I think we did this, but all right.
Okay.
I mean, it's what it is.
I mean, you get to go first. You got the easiest one.
Yeah, I'll go Dan Marino.
Dan Marino is number 3.
Okay. I thought you would take the low hanging fruit, but Philip Rivers has got to be number 1.
Philip Rivers is number 1, 63,440.
Warren Moon.
Warren Moon is at number 4, 49,325.
Okay. So I know that. All right. Carson Palmer.
Carson Palmer is at number 6, 46,247.
I'm gonna go with the local boy. I'm gonna go with Matty Ice.
Oh shit! Thank you.
Matt Ryan is number 2, 62,792.
I'm gonna go with the real local boy, Donovan McNabb.
Donovan McNabb is not on this list.
Wow, really? Thought that was a no-brainer. Okay.
Christ, he's been playing a long time and didn't win. You said Philip Rivers?
Yeah, that's my first guess. That's number 1. No-brainer.
It's 3-2, correct?
Shy went first, so yes, I'm the only one that missed one. 3-2.
I'll go with the red rifle. I'll go Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton is not in the top 10.
I'll go with the biggest rival. Went to 4 Super Bowls, didn't win one. Give me Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly is not in the top 10.
Wow. Okay. I'm kind of thrown off now.
That's a little cause for pause.
See, I'm telling you, we didn't go through this before.
I think we did, though. I hate to even put this guy's name in my mouth, but I'm going to do it. Donovan McNabb.
I already said him.
Gene already said him, and he's still not on the list.
All right.
Damn, he didn't move up.
Yeah, Donovan was the I thought it was a no-brainer. I really did. Long career. But okay. Did he win a Super Bowl? All right, give me Steve McNair.
No.
Steve McNair is not on this list.
Okay.
I'll go with the guy that played forever. Oh, no, he won one.
Were you going to say Favre?
No.
Okay.
I just always forget that Flacco won one. I'll go with another dude that I've used. I swear to God on 4 of these questions. That's why I think we've done this question. I'll go with Vinny.
Vinny Testaverde is number 7 on this list, 46,233.
I don't know why I'm stuck on Oilers quarterbacks. Give me Warren Moon.
Warren Moon has already been said.
Okay.
Still on the list though.
Oh, he's on the list. So I get to go again because he's on the list.
He is on the list. So
Damn. Okay. So was it 5-3?
4-2.
4-2. I haven't got one since 2. Who's a quarterback that's played a lot of football games, hasn't won a Super Bowl? A lot of passing yards. More passing yards than Donovan. That's kind of crazy. Donovan's got to be like 12, bro. Like, there's no way he's not close.
Jim Kelly's the one that threw me off.
Jim Kelly and Donovan, I probably have 11 and 12. But that's not for here nor there. Let's just continue to think.
for what you don't.
Okay. Thanks, jerk. For what's worth, you're still wrong.
You're more wrong than you thought you were.
Man. I'm lost. Let me
I'll give you 15 seconds here.
I mean, it's fair.
Can we get, if Julian doesn't get one here, can we get a clue?
I suppose so.
Randall Cunningham.
Randall Cunningham is not on this
Yeah,
list.
I kind of figured. I just didn't want to run out of time without giving a list. Without giving you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. So of the guys left, I mean, it depends. Like, what kind of hint would you like?
There's 4 left. There's 4 left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like Eris?
Sure. On the errors. That's fine.
Okay. All right, give me 1 second here. All right, so he played in one of these guys played in the 80s. I just want to make sure I get my timeline right here. You have 2 active. You have 1 in the 80s.
I know the active.
And then the other one played.
The active is way easier. I can't believe I didn't think about that.
The other one played in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
Oh.
I think I know one of the active players, and I think I know the 80s player.
1, 2, yeah, and that's your last 4 right there.
I think I know 2 of them. The 60s player, I think I can get to. I think if it's who I think it is. I think I can get 3 out of these final 4.
All right, Bill. Well, it is now on you here. In total, we'll give you 30 seconds. I don't think you're going to need that. I feel like you're going to give me a name before then, but
let's give a name.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the guy I just talked about. I'm gonna go with Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins is number 9 on this list.
That's 5. So the 80s guy's got to be Fran Tarkenton. That's
Fran
the guy
Tarkenton is on the
Playing
list.
80s.
Yes, he did. 70s, 80s. He's got early 80s quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings.
When did he play, Cottrell?
He played late 70s, and then most of his like achievements are in the 80s.
And when was the other guy?
1 active and 1 in the 60s, 70s.
Actually, no, I take that back. He was the 60s, 70s guy.
Yeah, he did not play in the 80s.
Fran Tarkenton.
My apologies.
Okay.
My apologies.
I thought Fran Tarkenton was the one that Dan Marino basically took his record from in 86. Okay.
His career was from 61 to 78.
Okay.
But it's back to you, though, Bill.
So there's 1 active and 1 80s then?
Let me just double check there. 1 active for sure. Let me just get the years right here. And boom. And yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Guy, well, 70s, 80s, but yes. But yes, that was the 60s, 70s guy first.
Okay.
I don't think any of the young guys have enough to get on this list. Jim Kelly's not on it.
Donovan's not on it.
Yeah, there's really only one guy it can be. Got Ryan. Just like go through the divisions real quick.
All right, well, we're going to give you 15 seconds.
Do 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 do. I gotta sing to keep this rolling.
It's got to be Carr.
Derek
If it's active.
Derek Carr is number 10.
We're done.
I'm like going through. I'm like, unless Burrow or one of them has enough yards already, it's the only person it could be.
And number 8 was Dan Fouts.
Jesus, Charger. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have got that. I wouldn't have got targeted either, though. So,
but I know for a fact that we didn't do this question because I know what you guys are thinking about. Because Kerry Collins was on the list that we did before, and he is off this list.
We need to do something really similar because I know Vinny's been an answer for a couple. I don't know. I'm gonna go back and research. I think we did it, but whatever. It's still fun.
I don't think we did that because the answers of who they were.
Exactly.
I thought Donovan and Jim Kelly would definitely be on that list.
They were not.
11 and 12, by the way.
Kerry Collins was at 11 with 40,922, and Andy Dalton was number 12 at 39,500. I know you're already looking up to see where Donovan and Jim were at.
100%. Donovan was at 37,000. Jim was at 35,000. Okay.
Jim surprises me because they threw the ball a lot, man.
K-gun, bro. The K-gun.
Yeah.
Thurman Thomas and the K-gun.
Man, Andre Reed.
All right, well, let's move on. We got to talk about – by the way, before we start. Hopefully I can clip this part. I'm not going to put any comments on the screen for the next 15, 30 seconds because I need to post it anyway. So last week, I said to bet your mortgage on the Detroit Lions. There's no chance that the Washington Commanders were going to go into Detroit and win that football game. That game reminded me of when in Any Given Sunday, the game after Steeman Willie Beeman won the playoff game and they got blown out and they didn't talk about it. So for Commanders fans out there listening, that got us 20,000 views on TikTok, a bunch of shares, a bunch of likes, a bunch of you're an idiot. And it's fair. I am an idiot. I make bold claims sometimes, and sometimes they're going to be wrong. And this is one of the ones where I was wrong. So the Commanders fans out there that followed, listened, shared, liked, and were cool. Man, I learned a lot about Commanders fans, talked to a lot of really good Commanders fans in the chat. Congratulations. I was wrong. Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury are much better than I expected them to be this year. I thought Jaden was good. I thought Dan Quinn was a great defensive mind. And I thought Cliff Kingsbury was a decent offensive coordinator. I was wrong on this one. I didn't bet my mortgage on it, fortunately. And to anybody that did listen to me, I apologize. But with that being said, we're headed into the link this week. And I'm telling you right now, we're going to kick your ass. So I want to add that to the end of the clip because Philadelphia is going to kick Washington's ass this Sunday. But let's stop there. Let's talk about the Commanders versus the Detroit Lions that happened on Saturday night. And I'm going to tell you right now, the reason I was so annoyed that Aaron Glenn just got this head coaching job is because it was a masterclass in being outcoached in that football game. They ran the same concept the entire game anytime they needed a big play. Don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly what they did. 3 wide receivers to the left or 3 wide receivers to the right. If the Detroit Lions were playing man coverage, 3 guys had to be over there. If they were playing zone coverage, 1 and a cheater, a second guy, would go over to that side of the field. If they ran man, they just ran a read option, where it was either Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler and Jaden Daniels. They used their strength in numbers up front because the Detroit Lions defensive line and linebackers couldn't stop the run game without playing zone. They needed to load the box. If they ran zone, which Detroit kept zone blitzing, they ran a bubble screen. And that Terry McLaurin 56-yard touchdown down the sideline, it was such a, like, if I'm Aaron Glenn and I'm watching down the sideline or in the booth, I have to call timeout. How do you not see that? Terry McLaurin, 2 wide receivers, 1 guy. The guy got blocked right off the line of scrimmage. McLaurin ran by everybody. He runs like a 4.3 40. You guys are one of the fastest guys in the league. Like, how do you watch that play and be like, no, I'm not going to call timeout? And Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, they did everything they needed to do. They kept running it over. It's like playing a rat that uses cheese plays in Madden and you can't figure out how to stop them. That's what the Commanders did. Oh yeah, cool. You're running zone. We're gonna pass the ball to the bubble screen over here and have our strength in numbers over here. Oh, you're playing man? Cool. We're gonna run a read option and you're gonna have to make a decision on who you're gonna run after, Brian Robinson or Jaden Daniels. And they rinsed and repeated that the entire football game. 45 points worth. Now, listen, the Detroit Lions did themselves no favors with the turnovers. Jared Goff with 3 interceptions didn't help anything. But that was a masterclass that was put on by Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. And that's all I got to say about that. That's not going to happen in Philadelphia because we can play man with their and still get our pressure with our front 6. We don't need to put extra guys in the box to stop the run because our interior defensive line is just better.
Side note, now that you said that, we'll get to them when we talk to them, but what's the status on Quinyon?
Quinyon's fine. He's fine.
Right. So he's ready to go.
Kind of figured that, he never struck me as a guy to miss important football games, but was just curious.
He looked emotional that they were pulling him out of the game after he came out of the tent. Like he wanted to play.
Agreed. But as far as this game goes, I mean, you're 100% right, Gene. I mean, they definitely got out coached. The Lions got out coached there. And I mean, I think that the big thing for me was that going into this game, I told you guys last week that I didn't think that the Commanders would have a problem scoring. It was really the fact that I didn't think they could stop anybody. And I thought that the way the Lions were moving the football, you get Dave Montgomery back. And, I just thought that offense would be more high powered than it was. Obviously you talk about the three Goff interceptions and, really the one that hurt the most was the pick 6. I mean, you're able to give up 31 points to that Commanders team in the first half. It's one thing, 24-31. I mean, it's not that big of a difference numbers wise, with how many points were scored ultimately in the game. But it's one of those things where that Commanders team went into the locker room. Their heads had to be held high. They had all the confidence in the world. And for Detroit, like as much as things have, like as much turmoil as that they've had with the injury bug and just them having to figure things out and overcome their defense's poor performances to win football games, it really just felt like they had nothing left in the tank. Like the fact that it was, late in that game and ultimately they ran a reverse pass with Jamison Williams with essentially the game on line. They were down 2 possessions and, that's ultimately the play you call up. And I get it. Detroit has been that team that's done trick plays at any occasion, and they always have something up their sleeves. But that is just flat out incompetence. Like that is malpractice to the highest degree. I wouldn't trust Jamison Williams to give me advice on anything. I mean, if I asked him how should I spend my last dollar, like I wouldn't even listen to him a decision on that. So let alone a playoff game where literally if you make a bad decision, the game is over. Because I mean, at that point, as soon as Sandstrom got that interception, it was a wrap. Like you knew there was no coming back from that. There was no recovery there. So I mean, I just think it was just a lot of bad decisions all around. And to your main point there, ultimately Detroit got out coached. So you got to tip your cap to Washington. And for Detroit, as great of a season as it was, this is one of those games that really make you look in the mirror, especially now that you have the whole coaching staff overturned. And that Detroit team, roster-wise, it may not look that different, but that Detroit team is going to look a lot different next year. I can promise you that.
Shally, before you go, he brought up the interception, and the one point I wanted to wait to get to, but I'll get to it with you, is Frankie Louvu is a dirty piece of shit. He's a dirty piece of shit. I just want to say that out loud and make sure that's on record. That guy went up and headhunted a quarterback that was engaged with a blocker. 100% was a penalty, didn't get called. The same Frankie Louvu that nose dove into Jalen Hurts just a month ago to concuss him. He's a dirty piece of shit.
Definitely has a problem leading with his helmet.
Your thoughts on the game?
Honestly, I was a little surprised. I mean, listen, we've kind of talked about it, for the last month or so. Detroit was kind of playing with fire with that defense. They were just when you lose that many starters and even that many second string guys, it's just tough. And then you're playing, against an offense that, for lack of argument, has weapons. They do, and Cliff Kingsbury, who is a good OC and put Jaden Daniels in a lot of positions to win and kept the game simple for him, just like you said. When they needed to play, if they ran trips either side and they were in zone, it was simple. We're going to do this. If they do this, we're going to do this. Kept the game very simple. Kept the game in front of Jaden Daniels. Let him make one decision at the most, and then go make a play. You can't really do more than that for a rookie quarterback. That's just good coaching. You can tip your cap there. I do think Aaron Glenn got out coached, but I also, like I said, I think he had his hands tied a little bit. I mean, it's when you have 2 or 3 third string guys starting your defense, that's an uphill battle. It just is. That offense had carried them the last month of the season. They were just outscoring people. And eventually you're going to run into a game. I mean, they still scored 35 or whatever it was. Somebody finally just scored more than them. But I think it's going to be a completely, different animal this week. It's I don't want to say anything nuts or anything like that, but it's they're going to face a completely different football team, different type of defense, and everything else. So
You're right. You're right. And it's just at this stage of the game, we're going to talk about Washington shortly. I want to kind of move forward to Sunday, but you're right.
But yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, again, I feel bad for Detroit because I think obviously not so much in this area because, our team is still involved, but Detroit was kind of becoming the media darlings. And I think a lot of people that weren't involved or didn't have teams involved, they were like, oh, Detroit would be the feel good story. And I think a lot of people wanted to see Detroit make that run and get to the Super Bowl, and it didn't happen. And then, like you guys both said, it's that roster is going to look, I think, pretty similar next year, but with the coaching staff being pretty much dismantled as we talk or as we sit here and talk, we'll see how they play next year. It'll be interesting.
We'll talk about Washington shortly. Detroit 100%. I do want to share a graphic image of the way it feels watching a Philadelphia Eagles game on Sunday. And this is just kind of the way I feel watching every Eagles game. So, oh boy, I'm excited. I'm about to watch my favorite team play. And then for the whole game, this is so stressful. And then there's a small slither at the end. Nice, we won. I'm not kidding when I tell you, watching the Philadelphia Eagles play football is the most stressful thing in the world. Saquon Barkley is absolutely incredible. Breaks 2 big runs. Jalen Hurts breaks a big run in the beginning of the game. Outside of the 3 big touchdown runs, our offense looks anemic and our quarterback looks shell-shocked in the pocket. Taking that safety, Kellen Moore goes out and tells the media, it's on me, that's on me, that's on me. No, bro, it's not on you. Saquon Barkley's right there in the flat. Throw it at his feet. Get rid of the ball. Kellen Moore calling a naked bootleg on 2nd and 6 when you're trying to bleed clock to win the game to get your quarterback sacked for negative 11 yards. It's got to be one of the worst play calls in the history of football. The guy can't move, and you're calling a naked boot when you're 6 yards away from winning the football game. I don't know if Kellen Moore was too preoccupied with doing interviews for the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job this week. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is still shell-shocked from his concussion, but something offensively has to change. Now, I'll give the defense all the credit in the world. I've watched that story unfold a million times. Player drops big pass to win the game. A.J. Brown drops big touchdown pass. Lane Johnson jumps off sides during the tush push to score a touchdown. Eagles have a 2-score lead and allow a score like nobody's business, right? The Rams just walk downfield. And then they don't figure out a way to get a first down when they're getting first downs all game. They figure out no way to get a first down. Stafford's got the ball in a situation where the Eagles had already won this football game, and Stafford has the ball with a chance to win the game. I already knew it was Atlanta. I already knew it was Washington when Devontae Smith dropped the ball. I'm like, they're going to lose this football game. I'm on my couch losing my goddamn mind. But the Rams make a mistake almost as big as Devontae Smith dropping that first down versus the Commanders in Washington. Almost as bad as Saquon Barkley dropping that ball versus Atlanta in week 2. Almost as bad as A.J. Brown dropping a touchdown that was directly put in his hands. And they passed the right guard off to the center and give Jalen Carter a free run at their quarterback on 3rd and 2 from the 19-yard line. I couldn't believe it. It was like Christmas came early. Because when they were at 4th and 11 in that snow, knowing that the corners and the safeties only had to protect the sticks, I knew the Eagles won the football game. It was over. But with that being said, Commanders team, Dan Quinn constantly gives Jalen Hurts fits. They're coming into town this week. Before we talk about the commies, your thoughts on Eagles-Rams. I want to go to Cottrell first because he sometimes gives me a different perspective from an outsider's point of view. But when me and Shally watch that game, I guarantee you Shally's screaming the same shit I'm screaming. Like, what the hell were we doing? Why are we holding the ball?
I mean, it even happened in our group chat. You know, you're like, the Eagles are going to lose this game. I'm like, I literally said, I was like, relax. Like, you still got Saquon. Like, Saquon can literally change this game whenever. And then sure enough, that's when he breaks the long, 65 or 70, however long the run was for a touchdown. I'm like, see, this is it. Defense is playing great. Like, I get it. To me, it looked like a tale of two things. You talk about the Rams and how well that they were playing. And to me, I think the big thing was Jalen Hurts pre-injury, Jalen Hurts post-injury. I'm not saying he was lighting the world on fire. I'm not saying, he was going to go out, and if that injury doesn't happen, the Eagles win by 20 points. But I am saying it does change how you look at a lot of things. You talk about the safety that he had in the end zone and, Saquon being there in the flat. If I know my quarterback can't move, I'm not sending him on a straight drop back where it's a pass play in the end zone. Like, I'd have to figure out something else. I'd have to think about more quick game there, because it wasn't just the fact that Jalen was hurt. It was the fact that we didn't know if he was going to come back in the game. They're like, oh, yeah, he's in the tent right now, and the Eagles offense is warming up on the sidelines. They're like, oh, he just came out the tent. He's back on the field. You talk about the bootleg play. Why are you rolling out weak side hurt knee? Like, to me, that just doesn't make – with a healthy quarterback, it still doesn't make a lot of sense in the situation. However, hurt quarterback rolling to hurt side with 2nd and 6, essentially game on the line. Because like you said, if you get the first down, you bleed the clock, and it's all she wrote.
Run goal line. Just run goal line. Everybody on the line of scrimmage and get 6 yards.
Especially the way Saquon was running. I mean, I had a lot of question marks there. And to Kellen's point, I mean, not point, but to Kellen's defense, you don't ever game plan for your quarterback to get hurt. So, like, there's certain situations, certain looks you see, you're like, I like this play versus this look. If you're out there on the field, you have to be able to run what I want to call. So I see both sides there, but I just think that was silly for Kellen Moore to just act like Jalen's 100% and you're just going to let him roll, though. But to the flip side of it, though, for the Philadelphia defense, that would have showed me everything I needed to see if I was an Eagles fan. The fact that Nakobe Dean wasn't out there, and at times, you definitely felt the presence of him missing in the communication and how things were with the Rams, use of motion, things like that, which I definitely thought would play a factor. But remind me again, the kid who made the big time special teams play last week.
Burks.
He was running around and playing with his head on fire this past game. So wanted to definitely, point
Nick
that out.
Got that man prepared. He was not prepared to play last week. He was definitely prepared to play this week.
Without him playing as well as he did, I think we're potentially looking at a different outcome as well, because he had a lot of big TFLs and just a lot of disruption throughout that full game there. And then you got to give all the credit in the world to that secondary. It's tough out there. It's tough out there for anybody playing in those conditions. But as a defensive back, it's incredibly tough because, one, you never know which way the receiver's breaking. And, especially with it snowing, like, you can see the line markers on the outside of where first downs are at and things like that. But it's incredibly tough to just stick your foot and go get Puka or Cooper Kupp when the conditions are perfect, let alone when it's snowing. And you're already playing, 10, 11 yards off just so that you don't get beat over the top there. So got to give the Eagles secondary a ton of credit there, because that is no easy feat. Like I said, when conditions are perfect, let alone in the snow. The defense came to play. Saquon came to play, and ultimately that's the reason why you brought the guy in. So Eagles are going to move on, and as an Eagles fan, I know we're going to get into previews here soon, but if you looked at the playoff picture of all teams that made it, the Commanders had to be high, if not number one, on list of teams that you wanted to see for a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
I wanted to play them again after the last time we played them. Shally, let me ask you a question real quick. Reed Blankenship, Nolan Smith, Cooper DeJean, those are unsung heroes in that football game. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of the biggest stops, bursting through the hole on that 3rd down and 1, making it 4th and 3, holding them to a field goal. One of the biggest unsung heroes in that football game. How did you see that game?
Cooper almost found himself on the wrong side of history, though.
You ain't kidding. You ain't kidding.
Almost, but listen. Cooper's been a blessing. So is Quinyon Mitchell. I think we both expected, them to play well this year. Nowhere near what they've actually done. Vic Fangio's taken 2 rookies and made them both studs. Quinyon Mitchell he's one of the least thrown at cornerbacks in all of football already. That defense, we knew this is what we hoped we were going to get. And then obviously as the season progressed, that's what they've turned into. And now that's what they are. They're physical. They're fast. They have 5 or 6 guys they can rotate in the back. They can all play. Obviously losing to Kobe hurt, but like you said, they got Burke ready. And as I said, I thought he was going to have to be the guy. I don't think Trotter Jr. is the guy. I know a lot of people get upset about that, but I think Burke's just a better football player and he's bigger. But my bigger concern is the offense. They go through these lulls where they just look like they're just all discombobulated. Kellen Moore has to be able to obviously run Saquon. He's our best player. He's electric. But we're struggling to throw the ball off of that. And that makes no sense. Like, we're just running A.J. Brown on, like, simple, square ends or slants. Like, we can't get him open in space anywhere all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks. Kellen
had him open for a touchdown, I'll tell you that.
He did. But Kellen Moore has to have a better game plan, against a Washington defense that will give up yardage. I'm assuming AJ and Lattimore are going to go at it, and that's fine. But again, I still like AJ in that matchup. I think Jalen's going to have a little bit of the game. That's all. I think like you said, Dan Quinn, I think is going to make Jalen earn it. I think they'll try really hard to take Saquon away as much as they can without overcommitting. But it's going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game. But overall, I think Jalen played really well. We talked about the one he checked into the first long touchdown by Saquon. Saw something he liked, moved to protection, and checked into the run. And it's my biggest gripe with him is the safety. That just there's I don't care if you're hurt, if you're out there and you're playing enough that you could take 2 steps back and open up your eyes and see you a guy wide open in the flat and get rid of the football. There's no excuse for that there. That ball has to get out of there. It's literally the only thing you can't do is get sacked there and take a safety. So that was my really disappointing big gripe in regards to how he played on Sunday. I think it was a B+ game for him. I think he's probably going to have an A game. Doesn't have to play A+, doesn't have to be Superman, but he's probably going to have to play a little bit better for them to beat Washington.
As for sake of time, I know the fact that the next game is real important to talk about, and we got to do 2 previews, and then MLB and then UFC, we got to move. Buffalo versus Baltimore. Guys, I went into this football game telling you guys, I don't know who the 3rd best quarterback in football is. My 1's Patrick Mahomes, my 2's Joe Burrow. My 3rd will be determined after this football game. I did not determine my 3rd after this football game. I think Josh Allen could earn that 3 spot if he goes in to Kansas City and wins a football game and beats the Chiefs. But I watched that football game, and I'm telling you right now, you can't tell me that Josh Allen played a better football game than Lamar Jackson did. You can't. Now, Lamar Jackson had 2 very bad turnovers. And those turnovers are absolute negatives on your play sheet. They're negatives, right? And they're huge negatives, right? Those are negatives that you can't have. And this seems to happen a lot. Like Lamar Jackson had 4 interceptions this year. And if you watch the tape on those 4 interceptions, 3 of them aren't even his fault.
Yeah.
They're not. But that interception was terrible. Very bad throw, overthrown, wasn't there. That fumble, bad snap, I get it. You can fall down on that football. You can throw that football away. But trying to deke a safety in Damar Hamlin, and give credit to Damar Hamlin, right? Just made a swipe at the ball. Lamar ultimately dropped it. But still, the point being is he's trying to make a move with a slippery ball instead of falling down on the bad snap, which he could have done. That's a fumble for Lamar Jackson. Those are bad plays. With that being said, out of the break, down 21-10, field goal, touchdown, a fumble by Mark Andrews, touchdown, drop 2-point conversion. They didn't even think about a punter in the second half of that game. Lamar and that offense was moving the ball at a great rate. Josh Allen, however, will get praised for winning the football game when they scored 0 in the third and got 2 field goals in the fourth. No touchdowns. With that being said, I still think the conversation between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson's there. It just brings up the point that me and Cottrell talked about last week. And me and him are just probably never going to agree here, and that's fine. I respect his opinion. But winning and losing aren't the only factors in which a quarterback should be graded. They are huge factors. But coming away from that football game, and Shally, I'll ask you, because I know Cottrell's answer. I know it already. Shally, I'll ask you. Coming away from that football game, who did you think had the better football game? And who do you rank higher in the NFL, Lamar or Josh Allen?
I mean, it's 4 or 5 because I've Herbert 3. No, I'm just kidding.
I was about to say,
I almost left the show.
Gene's face just got white. It was great. I got the reaction I wanted. Listen, now the first thing I said is I'm walking away from that game. I no doubt in my mind, I think Baltimore's the better football team. In regards to Allen and Buffalo, or Allen and Lamar, this is the conundrum that Lamar Jackson is. Like, for spurts of that game, he absolutely played better, but he has the 2 awful turnovers, and no matter how you slice it, those turnovers factor into what happened in that game. But that being said, if you look on the all the Josh Allen, love, he kind of played like almost like a game manager type game. Like, he didn't do anything explosive. Like, he didn't do anything wild. But that's kind of how they've played this year. They've kept him within the framework. Take the opportunities when you can, put points on the board when you can, and don't turn the ball over. And that's what they've done all year. And again, we're sitting here. We all thought there was a chance they were going to be better without Stephon Diggs this year. And, you have to give Allen credit. You have to give Joe Brady credit. It's all, it's hard for me not to agree with Gene and say that wins don't matter or aren't the only measuring stick, because I don't think that they can be. But if you showed somebody that game that never watched football before, they're probably going to tell you Lamar Jackson's the better quarterback. And that's just where it gets really tough. But Josh Allen is the one that won, and he's going to go get another crack at Patrick Mahomes. And, if
how
he
wins, how does Mark Andrews have to feel right now?
Man, it's tough for Mark. I feel bad for Mark Andrews because he was there even before like Lamar Jackson got there. Like, he was on there for like a couple of those like bad teams before they got really good again. And the dude catches that ball probably 99 out of 100 times, and it's the one time he did. And then you factor in he had the fumble earlier in the game, and it's a very.
I don't know who he thought he was. Like, I think he thought he was like Tyreek Hill.
I said that in the moment. I don't know who Mark Andrews thought he was there, but
Listen.
It's like we trying to do it behind the back, like with the ball. Like, what are we doing?
Listen, big guys, they feel the moment too much sometimes. He got up and he's like, I got a little bit more space than I usually do, and try to do some crazy stuff. And
that's why you run straight. Mark Andrews has never been the elusive guy.
Listen, I get it, but big fellas trying to make a play, and they outthink themselves sometimes. It's like the age-old debate. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with Allen this week. I mean, the problem here's the problem that really boils down to. I would find it hard to believe that one of these two doesn't win a Super Bowl at some point.
Yeah.
So I really think, because I do agree with you. I think it's Patrick. I think it's Joe. And then I think you have to agree these are the next two in some order. Yeah. I think it's the race to the top of the mountain, dude. I really do. Like, I think Lamar does have the 2 MVPs, but I mean, you could argue that I guess Josh has a little bit better success in the playoffs.
I don't know. I don't know.
And I'm not saying you have to agree with that. It's close. I'm just saying it's a conversation.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think the biggest. I mean, I think Josh has that epic game against Mahomes where he played out of his mind. And I think Lamar, to what you said at the beginning, Lamar has too many of those bad marks in playoff games. Like, no matter what it is, like even if they're early, it's just interception here, fumble there. Next year, interception here, and that's the narrative about Lamar. Josh
has got to go out and beat Patrick.
Agree. Somebody's got to, and until any of them do, that's where we're at, and that's why obviously Joe Burrow is a fantastic quarterback, but he gets that huge bump because he made a Super Bowl because he beat Patrick.
Yeah, Cottrell, your thoughts on the game?
I mean, look, the biggest thing for me is, and I'm going to stay consistent with it. I don't think either quarterback played great. To be honest, that was kind of how I expected that the quarterback play to look. I told you guys before, I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. Like, I didn't think either one of them would be Superman. To Josh's credit, I think he didn't make any bad plays, but he also didn't do anything special. For Lamar, he did have two bad plays. The fumble, you grade the fumble out as a negative play, but I understand how the fumble happens because linemen are downfield. You don't want to throw it away. And it's ultimately Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's the best athlete on the field. We've seen him make those spectacular plays. So if you're going to live with the spectacular plays, you also have to live with the turnovers when they happen there. Because that's just what's going to happen with the nature of the beast. So the fumble, I understand. The interception was poor. There's no excuse for it. But with that said, you could talk about Lamar playing better than Josh, but at the end of the day, he didn't win. I'm not even going to entertain that.
I didn't say it.
I know you didn't, but you can't. You quite literally can't win. What the statement is so.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
I know. But anyway, regardless, wins and losses are the thing that matter, and it's not the end all be all. Like, I don't want that to be like the takeaway from me was saying that, but we talk about Burrow beating Mahomes. We don't talk about what Burrow's and I'm not even going to get back into that argument. We don't talk about what Burrow's numbers were versus Mahomes, because I'd argue that Josh Allen, of the three guys here that haven't beat Mahomes yet, Josh Allen has had the best game, with any of the three of them. So that's why I say wins and losses matter, because if Joe Burrow had the numbers that Josh did and won, I think that's a completely different argument. But Allen had the numbers and then ultimately lost the football game. And Burrow didn't have anywhere close to the numbers that Josh had, won the football game. But we're talking about he slayed the beast in Patrick Mahomes. So for me, that's why I think winning matters. And like to the point that we've already talked about in this game, who do you have ahead? Is it Lamar? Is it Josh? Josh won this week. So Josh is not going to be remembered that Lamar played the better game. It's going to be remembered that Josh Allen won and had a chance to go beat Patrick Mahomes. So that's where I'm at right now. And, Josh ultimately beat.
Buffalo Bills won. I love you, but the Buffalo Bills won.
All right, but 25 seconds ago, we literally just said Joe Burrow beat Pat. Like, that's what we're saying. So
because
why are we bringing in?
You guys put it as The wins are what matters more than anything.
Hold on that there. Your argument with Burrow all the time is he gets put there because he has a Super Bowl appearance. No, that is one of your number one arguments with Burrow all the time.
He's a better quarterback. My argument with Burrow is he throws the ball better. He's more accurate. He dissects the defense better.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
He's a better quarterback. That's my argument with Burrow.
He's a better.
I've always told you my eye test is what does the judgment for my quarterback. I've always said that. Now, when you guys get into the winning conversation, I say, well, Burrow did make it to a Super Bowl. I do bring that point up when we're talking about the wins and losses. But my argument is always that Joe Burrow is the better quarterback because he's the better quarterback. That's it.
The only thing I would push back on what Cashel said a little bit is I don't think we can have a double standard with like the gun, like trying to make plays, blah, 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 because forever that was kind of always the knock on Josh. It was you're going to get the 4 touchdown passes, but he's going to force stuff and he's going to do something, and you're probably going to have a fumble and an interception on top of that. And that was a lot of times that was the downfall of why they lost.
But that wasn't the end all be all with Josh though. It was the bad interceptions that we had a problem with. When David was there, you were fine with the interceptions being aggressive, but when you throw it into triple coverage and it gets intercepted, that's completely different.
I agree. But that wasn't always the case, and that was always the knock on Josh. Lamar's interception on this weekend was awful. It was bad, and the fumble was bad. Like it's. I understand the playmaking thing. No, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying it was bad though.
Said the fumble wasn't as bad as the interception.
You can't. My thing is you can't throw it away there, and we've seen Lamar make a play there before. Just jump on it, live to see another day. That's one of those things. It's playoff. Like, when have you ever seen Lamar jump on it and live to see another? That's my thing. That's all.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I'm not saying it's right. And I'm not saying it's the right decision. Like, obviously you should have jumped on it. But I'm just saying with Lamar, like I compare it to. I know we got to move on for the sake of time here, but I compare it to this. We've seen, like, for example, Steph Curry. He can come if he takes one step past half court and chucks up a 3 and he misses. We'd be like, that's a bad shot. But at the end of the day, you're like, it's Steph. Like, he can hit that. Like, I feel the same way with Lamar equating into football. When it's a fumble, you're like, that's a bad play. But if he makes a play and go get the first down, then it's that's Lamar.
I get the mindset. That's being a little generous, though. I mean, Steph's the best shooter to walk on the planet. I mean, he's made so many of them. I think
I'd argue Lamar's the best athlete to ever play the quarterback position. Athlete.
All right, doesn't
make him the best quarterback, though.
We got to move on. We got to preview 2 games, and then we're gonna go a little late today. Sorry, guys. But Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, Sunday. Obviously, the tape will tell you everything next week. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. When we have to do recaps next week, we won't be doing previews because the following week is the Super Bowl. But I'll go first here because I think you guys already know where I'm going. And I genuinely believe that the loss of the Commanders starting right guard is going to be incredible for the Commanders. I think that's one of those things that you really just can't overcome when you have Jalen Carter coming up the middle. Sam Cosmi being out for this game and tearing his ACL versus the Eagles' defensive front, that means the Philadelphia Eagles do not have to blitz to stop the run. They can literally play 5 or 6 man boxes and stop the run. If the Eagles can play man coverage with the deep safety to cover Terry McLaurin on the deep end, the Eagles defensively should have no problem stopping this Commanders team. No problem. I think the Eagles' penetration from Carter, Nolan Smith, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat will be too much for the Commanders. With that being said, offensively, you can't screw it up. You can't turn the ball over. You can't hand the ball there. You can't have stupid play calls. You have to be able to move the ball efficiently. I think Hurts can have a B-plus game. I do. But I think the offensive line needs to be able to move the Commanders' defensive line. And I think when the Commanders load the box, which they always do to stop Saquon Barkley, Hurts has to be able to make that throw over the top to be able to keep the defense and the safeties honest. I think the Eagles win this football game 31-20. I think that they end up winning the game by 11. That's where I'm at. I think it's a little higher scoring game than we would project it to be, but I think the beginning of the game is ugly. Muck and grind. might be 6-0, 7-6 at one point. I can see that. So that's where I'm at in this football game. Looks like the weather will be a lot better. No snow. Snow's called Monday night, so hopefully that doesn't get pushed up. I think that Jaden Daniels will have a tough time throwing the ball in cold weather. He's always had a little bit of an issue throwing the ball in cold weather. So him playing at Detroit was really helpful, playing indoors. So I think the Eagles win this football game 31-20. That's where I'm at. Cottrell, where are you at in this game?
For me, I mean, I think I see it somewhat similar. I do think ultimately, I think it's going to be a one-possession game, though. Not that, again, I think similar to last week, I think the Eagles felt like they were in control of the game, and it was just like maybe 3 bad decisions. And it's like, are we going to find a way to lose this football game? I think you may get a little bit of that again this week, but ultimately, I like the Eagles to win it 27-20. I think the big thing for me was what the Eagles ultimately got to come out with, is like obviously they got the win, but coming out with the moral victory of letting those defensive backs know that, hey, Puka and Cooper, like for the most part with the bad weather, you had those guys under wraps. I think obviously Terry McLaurin's a special receiver in his own right there, and you do have to, make sure you put some extra attention on him. But with that said, there's nobody else on that Commanders team that really scares you anywhere on the field. I think Jaden Daniels' legs are going to have to be really important in this one. You're going to have to find a way to get those advantages again, whether it be in the read option or design quarterback power or quarterback zone, whatever it may be. I think you have to find ways to get Jaden Daniels out in space, maybe some boots to try to pick up some cheap yards and things like that. If Washington wants a chance to win this football game, it cannot be the same way that they won it in Washington before in the regular season. This cannot be a high-scoring football game. You have to limit possessions. You have to rely on your defense, and you have to be able to get consistent first downs without ultimately needing the big play. So for me, I think this will be, to your point, Gene, I do think this is an uglier game to start for sure. Both teams kind of getting the feel out, especially with the Eagles on offense. I think with Jalen Hurts' knee injury, of course, he's going to say he's good to go and he's going to play and all of that. But I do think you kind of get a little bit more of a feel out process to see what can he really do. Make sure we don't get any extra tweaks, because I think deep down the Eagles know as long as they play their brand of football and they play their game, 2 weeks from now, they're going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And that's when they need Jalen Hurts as close to 100% as possible. So I think you see a lot of Saquon Barkley here. Maybe this is a week that he actually gets 30 snaps with 30 carries. And, he was close to it their last matchup after Hurts got hurt. I think you're going to see that this week. And I like a 27-20 ball game for the Eagles to go to Super Bowl.
Shally.
I like a lot of what you both said. I think the Eagles have to come out fire. I think they got to be aggressive. I don't want to see the muck and grind start. I think the longer you let the game go that way, the longer I think Washington gets more confident. I think Washington finds more ways to stay in the game. I don't want it. Gene said they're going to try to stack the box and start, try to take Saquon away early, run play action early. And again, that's going to fall on Jalen. I don't want to see play action and a slant to AJ or, a 5-yard in and Devonta. Take the shots early and at least let them know it's coming. And then run Saquon behind it. I think the biggest difference in this game is going to be the Eagles defense. I think Gene nailed it right on the head in his preview. I think they'll be able to keep 5 or 6 in the box. And I think if there's a no running game between Brian Robinson Jr., Eckler, whoever they put back there, I think Washington's in a lot of trouble. I don't know how they're going to be able to consistently move the ball. You put either Slay or Quignon on Terry. Like you said, you're probably going to have safety help over top. And then that's really going to make him throw the ball into some tight windows and really, really be efficient and really accurate in an outside game where, it's not going to be snowing. It's still going to be 40 degrees and cold and probably a little windy. So I think that's a huge advantage for the Eagles in this game. Ultimately, I think Jalen hits enough stuff, either medium or deep routes to really have to just make Washington play honest. And if they do, then I think that's where you see Saquon in that offensive line, especially probably later in the third quarter, fourth quarter, really start to take the game over and really just start to pound Washington down. So I like the Eagles 27-17 over Washington. I think they go to the Super Bowl.
Got to get into the main event of the evening. the main event of the evening is definitely a return to Arrowhead for the Buffalo Bills, playing against Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Kermit the Frog, Patrick Mahomes. Shally, how do you see this one going? We'll go in reverse order.
I feel like KC's been playing with fire all year. I've said it, and I've said it for the last couple months. They're winning the games with defense, not offense. I think they made a couple big plays against Houston, but two of them were drives that were extended on BS flags. It's really hard to pick against a 16-1 team at home when Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. And I feel like that Kansas City's defense is just this is the nightmare matchup, in my opinion, for Buffalo. Where they want to play a little bit more conservative and play within the boundaries of the offense and take what is given. And I don't think Steve Spagnuolo and that defense is going to give them too much. I think I really think if Buffalo falls behind, they're going to have to try to start force stuff that's probably not there. And that's where I just get concerned. I really want Buffalo to win. I would love to see a Buffalo Eagles Super Bowl. I think that could be the end of New Orleans if that's the case. But I think it's same old song and dance, rinse, repeat. I think Mahomes is going to find a way to get it done. I think this is a lower scoring game. I didn't check the weather in Kansas City. I'm sure it's going to be butt ass cold, but I don't know if they're expecting any weather on top of that. But I'll go 21. I'll go 21-13 Kansas City.
Control.
I mean, this game, we say it all the time. The old adage is it's tough to beat a good team twice in the same season, and Buffalo has already gotten that one win against this Chiefs team in Buffalo. But I said it last year, and I'm going to say it again this year. I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes again until he proves me wrong. I think that when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce has honestly looked like he's been ready to retire all season, and then he comes out in his playoff game last week and has over 100 yards and 9 catches, and he looks like old Travis Kelce. It's like, all right, so it just hits January, and now Travis Kelce can play football again. So for me, looking at the first matchup as well, Pacheco didn't play, Kareem Hunt played, and I think that's going to factor into it as well. I see it being a tight game. I think Buffalo is put the training wheels on Josh Allen for whatever reason, and with that being the case, it's going to be not the shootout that everyone I think wants it to be. I got 23-20 walk-off field goal, Harrison Butker, to send the Chiefs right back to the Super Bowl for a rematch against the Eagles.
I see this football game pretty clearly. I do. I see it clearly. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs playing at home, their defense, the way they are, Patrick Mahomes, Kelce, that so many weapons that they have offensively. They have an offensive line that can contend with Buffalo's defensive line. Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller, they do a great job of controlling them when they play each other. Buffalo, on the other hand, they don't have the wide receiver weapons, and that allows Kansas City to place so many players in the box to control James Cook in the run game, to control Josh Allen in the run game. Didn't happen in Buffalo, though. And what I see happening in this football game is a little bit of madness, a little bit of miracles, a little bit of craziness. And that's okay. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again. No one quite circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills. And this is the culmination of year after year of getting this shit kicked out of you by the Buffalo Bills, by the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Buffalo finds a way to win this football game. And I think it's found on the back of Josh Allen. I said Superman would bring out his cape last week. He didn't. He didn't, right? Buffalo found out a way to win that football game without Superman wearing the cape. Josh Allen is going to scramble, make a play that's going to make you go, wow. And the Kansas City Chiefs are going to continue playing with fire, and this time they're going to get burnt. I think the Buffalo Bills win this football game, and I think it's crazy. 30-28 on a walk-off touchdown for the Buffalo Bills. 30-28. I think it's going to be a wild football game. You don't want to turn your TVs off. If you're CBS, just play my promo. Don't worry about anything else. This is going to be the game to watch this weekend. I'm fired up. And I don't think New Orleans can handle Philadelphia fans and Buffalo fans. Bills fans, I think the city can't take it at this point.
As an Eagles fan, would you prefer to see Kansas City, both of you?
I'd prefer Buffalo.
I like our matchup either way, if I'm being 100% honest.
I prefer to see Buffalo.
I mean, I understand not wanting to see Pat, but I was more so like the revenge.
I'll tell you why I'd prefer Buffalo. The Philadelphia Eagles defense can man coverage every one of those wide receivers and not have any fear of them going over the top of them. I think the defensive matchup for Philadelphia to be able to play press man coverage versus those wide receivers and absolutely load the box versus Josh Allen in that run game, I think that we're a terrible matchup for Buffalo.
I mean, I agree with that, but I that's why I wanted to know matchup wise or the revenge.
I think the Chiefs and Andy Reid with an extra week of preparation can scheme a million different things that will be able to give us problems. I think that the Buffalo Bills will not schematically beat us.
So revenge doesn't play a factor. That's all. That's all I want to know.
Oh, who do I want to see?
Yeah,
like if you're guaranteeing a victory, I would rather guarantee.
Well, no, not guaranteeing the victory.
I'd rather play Buffalo.
Guaranteeing the Eagles are in the Super Bowl.
I'd rather play Buffalo. And by the way, I could stomach it a little bit more if Buffalo wins. I could.
I get it.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I would take the victory either way. It would definitely.
Of course, you take the victory either way.
It would be sweeter if we beat Kansas City.
That's correct. But you're not guaranteeing the victory, and I don't want to play against. Like, by the way, I look at the matchups of the officials. I'm not kidding with you. The official matchup for this week for the Eagles is great. I love the way the officials play out. They call a ton of offensive holding calls. They call a lot of holding. And the Eagles are the least penalized team for holding. They actually have 2 less penalties with this crew on offensive holding because their offensive line is coached well. Jeff Stoutland coaches their offensive line well. Whereas the Commanders, they have 50% of their offensive holding penalties have been with this crew. 50%, and they've only had them 4 games. 50% of their offensive holding calls have been with this crew. And when a backup left guard, I think that they're going to have issues holding the Eagles defensive line. So I look at the officiating and I don't want to play Patrick Mahomes. I just don't feel like it's fair.
Well, they didn't get the crew that they want. They didn't get the 7-0 crew that they had last week. So they announced the Chiefs. They announced the officials for the Super Bowl. I forget who it is. It's not even one of like the big guys either.
No, it is. One of them is. The head official.
We got Sean Hockley for the Eagles, and their crew calls a ton of.
It's the black guy with glasses. He's always on.
Yeah, very good.
I can't remember his name.
He's very good.
That's whose crew has the Super Bowl. So,
I don't mind that. I love that guy.
7-0 crew is Clay Martin.
Oh God, that's the same guy. Do you remember the Eagles had the issue versus Carolina? And we made this big stink about we wanted
Ron Torbert is the guy.
That's him.
All right, guys, let's move on to Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I do want to say this, right? And I understand in all the years of naming Hall of Famers, there's only been one unanimous Hall of Famer, and that's Mariano Rivera. I understand that. I do. I just think it's stupid. Right? Like when you have a player of the caliber of Ken Griffey Jr., when you have a player the caliber of Derek Jeter, when you have a player the caliber of Ichiro Suzuki, I don't know how you check the box and go no. I don't know how you check the box and go no. I don't.
We don't check no, you just don't check it at all. But yeah, same difference.
I don't know how you do that.
The biggest thing about all this, like I've said before, Willie Mays, I think, got inducted with only 88% of the vote, something like that.
It's crazy.
And it's nuts.
The one thing that I don't understand about this is that, I mean, I'm sure they have conversations, like the writers have conversations about it before they ultimately go make their vote and things like that. But like, how do you know you're going to be the guy that doesn't like? Because what if everyone wants to be that guy, and then Ichiro ultimately comes up with 62% of the vote? And we're like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, how did they ultimately get?
Because there's only about 10 or 11 of these morons. That's why.
It's probably a little bit more than that, but to Julian's point, it's a small. There's 300 and some votes. It's a small handful of like 25 or so that will even debate doing this silly shit. So
yeah, but if you want to be that guy, though, I'm just saying, like, if I'm a writer, I mean, no repercussions with it. Does it ever come out who votes? Because I mean,
what happens is
a lot of guys make their ballots public now. So
a lot of them do, but not all of them, though. It's not like
all
a required thing.
But what these guys do now, Cottrell, and I thought Charlie was about to say this, the guy that is the one guy that doesn't vote them, they use it as their 15 minutes of fame. They get on every TV show. That's what they did with the Derek Jeter one. The guy that didn't vote for Derek Jeter was all over ESPN. He was all over Fox Sports.
But that's a perfect point. Like, why not be that guy? Like, if you're one of the 25, of the 300 that are that people, granted, the guys are still going to get in, but why not be that guy if that's the case? If I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my 15 minutes of fame, still to keep my vote. No one really cares. There's no checks and balances here. Why not be the guy?
That's the problem, because I feel like you're making a mockery of the process there.
Correct.
100%.
Like if you're handed the responsibility to do this, and again, it's not it sounds silly, but it's immortality for these guys, and it also, again, it sounds dumb, but when you sign autographs, it now lets you anybody who has one of these guys' autographs, now they automatically want it to say Ichiro Suzuki, Hall of Fame 2024.
It's already out. Lavelle E. Neal is the one guy who didn't vote for Ichiro.
It doesn't take long, because usually somebody knows who it is, and they kind of trickle it down through sources and let it get out. If you do something like this, now again, if you didn't vote for CC Sabathia, that's fine. But when you're talking about guys that universally are some of the best players to ever play the game, not just of their generation, to ever play the game, and you don't vote for them, you should lose your vote.
I agree.
Like in a couple years when it's Pujols' time or Cabrera's time, I know they won't be unanimous, but and
they won't, and it's a joke.
They won't, but there's no reason why that should happen.
They are two of the top 20 right-handed hitters to ever play baseball, both of them. And they won't be unanimous. And again, not to take anything away from Mariano Rivera, but how is the only guy that's ever been unanimous to get in a freaking closer? Like not Willie Mays, the center fielder, who's the best.
You think they had like a group text afterwards, and we're like, wait, I thought you would have got it.
Yeah, it's like, God damn it, who dropped the ball here?
God damn it!
This is your year to not screw it up. Like,
bro, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't, with the way some of these guys vote. I love, there's so many people that make it public now, so you can kind of track it, before the numbers even come out, and have a pretty good idea. I know Buster and like Jason Stark and all those guys, they all the high profile guys that vote, they all release their ballots
for sure.
And so
they do it almost right away too.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're going to pull stuff like this, then you should have to release it.
Yeah.
And I want an answer why.
Is there a limit to how many people you're allowed to vote?
Isn't it
it's 10. You're allowed to vote for 10.
Okay. So
you don't have to vote for 10, but you can vote for 10. I
want to congratulate CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner for also making the Hall of Fame. But the one thing that was evidently clear when looking at the votes was Carlos Beltran is going to get in next year, and Andrew Jones will make it before his 10th year of eligibility.
Did you guys see
Andrew's 10th year is next year?
Did you guys see Chipper Jones' tweet?
What?
Did you guys see Chipper Jones' tweet?
No. What did he say?
He basically came out and put out all of Andrew Jones's accomplishments. He was like, if Andrew Jones was a Yankee for his entire career with the exact same stat line, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, no questions asked. I'm going to go pull it up here just to get all the numbers right here. But he's like, I got a question for all the Hall of Fame voters. 15 years, 10 gold gloves, 400 plus home runs, 1,300 RBIs. Is he a Hall of Famer? Let me answer that for you. First ballot if he's a Yankee.
I mean, Andrew Jones will be a Hall of Famer next year. Next year will be his 9th year on the ballot. This year was his 8th. Carlos Beltran will be a Hall of Famer next year, which is awesome to see both those guys make it. I'll tell you the one thing I really learned about this voting, though. Chase Utley's got a real shot at making the Hall of Fame. Went from 28% to 39%, up 11% year over year. And this is only his second year of eligibility. He's got 8 more years. And if he continues to grow at a rate like that, I think Chase Utley will be a Hall of Fame.
He should get a very big jump next year because next year's class, nobody's getting it.
Yeah.
So I'll be completely honest with you. Here's the thing I would tell you. No one from next year's class is going to be a first. I don't think anybody from that ballot ever gets in. But segue. But I have a problem with Beltran getting in on a second, and I'll tell you why. Pete was banished, deservedly so. You've punished all the PED guys. This guy's a known cheater, and he's going to get in on his second or third year. I have a problem with it.
That's fair.
And you have a guy like Andrew Jones, who, if you're being honest, they're very actually comparable players. Beltran hit a little bit better for average, and Andrew Jones is obviously a better defender.
Yep.
Yeah, they're very comparable players. Why is Andrew Jones still on the ballot after 8 years? And Carlos Beltran, like you said, with the tracking, there's no way he doesn't get in next year. So why are, and this is the message they're sending. Why are Beltran, Altuve, when he comes up and all that, why are they getting a pass for cheating?
Or team.
By the way, this has got to be. I'm looking at this 2026 first time Hall of Fame candidates. I don't think any of them get in. Any of them ever get in.
It's one of the worst. I agree.
The funny thing is that I was looking through this and I was like, damn, what could have been with Matt Kemp and Ryan Braun?
It's fair.
Like Matt Kemp was on a trajectory. It was like, if you have 3 or 4 more seasons at like you did at your peak, pre-Rihanna, post-Rihanna, you're probably in the Hall of Fame. And then Ryan Braun, if the steroids don't happen and you have the same career that you had before you got busted, maybe you're also in the Hall of Fame. So this is like the what if committee for me.
Cole Hamels the same way. If Cole Hamels could have put another 5 years together without his arm falling off and gets to that magical 200 number, which it looks like it's going to be the new 300 for pitchers. Being a World Series MVP and all that, he probably has a decent shot to sneak in towards the end, but none of these guys are ever going to get in. No. That's why it's going to be really curious to see how much Chase jumps next year.
Gio Gonzalez and Rick Porcello being on the list makes me actually sick to my stomach. They were bad pitchers. Like Gio Gonzalez had like 2.5 good years. Never mind, I'm done. Can we move on to UFC? We're a little bit late.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Want to recap UFC 311, but it won't be too hard to recap it. Obviously,
exactly how we thought.
And not even exactly how we thought, but the fact that the step in where Sarukian was pulled out, Islam absolutely dominated. It was just jumped on him. The game fight's over. Good night. Have a good night. Dude, but I want to ask this question. For 311. And I'm assuming at this point, all of you guys have seen the Merab Umar fight because the Yuri fight was hilarious. It was fun. It was exactly what you expected from Yuri. But the Umar Merab fight, I just want to see how you guys scored it. It was 3-2, 3-2, 4-1. I scored it 4-1 Merab. I felt like he won the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I felt like he lost the first.
I also had it 4-1, but I thought he won the first. I thought he dropped the second. Like I thought they gave Umar too much credit for him landing one punch that stunned him a little bit in the first round. Like it wasn't even anything crazy, but like I feel like that was Austin what gave him the round. But to me, it felt like Merab was pushing the control there. He was the aggressor in the fight, and it was really even that first round. And that judge that scored it 4-1 also gave Merab the first round as well. So, I just thought that I thought he did more in that round, but the last 3 rounds were very evident that Merab killed Umar with pace.
100%. Shally, your thoughts on the Umar fight?
I had it scored like you did. And I thought it was there was the one guy I ended up watching with he was like he's like I think it's 5-0. And I was like I was like I don't think they're gonna do that, but I was honestly I was a little surprised at how uncompetitive it was, if I'm being honest. Especially with him, we talked about it last week. He was a 3. I think he closed at like minus 330 when the fight started, something like that. It was right around there. And he got dominated.
I felt like it was competitive. I felt like every round was competitive. I felt like every round outside the 5th was competitive. I really believe that. I don't think that he blew him out in any round.
I think the only thing that made me feel like it was, I'll say this. It was a one-sided fight, but it was a competitive one-sided fight.
Right.
Like, I don't know how to put that into words, but that's like how I felt about it. Like Umar, you could tell if he had more in the tank, I think if he would have had a chance to actually win that fight. Like obviously Merab, his big thing is his cardio and how much he can go at you. If Umar had better cardio, and that's not even to say that he has bad cardio, it's just nowhere close to Merab, and I don't think there's anyone in the UFC at this point that is. But I think if he had better cardio, you could see him getting his spots and having success in spots. It was just that, Merab is just relentless. And as much as you defend the takedown, in that 4th and 5th round, you start to see that it really wore on Umar. And that's ultimately how he got the fight to the ground and, started having success on the ground with that.
I agree with you. But the card was fun. It was decent. I think Yuri puts on a show. I think he's always going to be fun to have on a card. If you can get him a fight like he got in this card, you're always going to have some entertainment. But Islam's just dominant. And you can't throw somebody in last minute versus Islam. He's just going to dominate.
You can't scratch him off the card because it would just plummet. But that is not a guy I want to fight on 30 hours notice. It's just
that is the only, honestly, if I'm being honest, that's the only time I want to fight Islam. Like I want to try and catch him off guard. Moicano was already in camp. He's been training for, Armin this entire time. Like that's the only time I'd willingly want to see Islam, like trying to catch him on short notice. And I'm already in camp. So if I'm Moicano, like I 100% understand why he did it. Because if a full camp, obviously we saw how that went, but a full camp of Islam preparing for me, like I know that's no bueno.
Yeah, that's all she wrote on the card. I did think it was very interesting how bad Kevin Holland got beat early in the card, but it was a quick submission. It looked very similar to the Hamzat, exactly. All right, let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me, gentlemen. I know you guys we're a little bit late, so let's get into it.
All right, so for me this week, I'll keep it simple. I was originally going to use the Ben Johnson, fake reverse pass with Jamison Williams because that's up there with the worst decisions of the year so far. But keep it a little bit more lighthearted. I'll go to the national championship game and what ensued afterwards. So in the tunnel, don't know where they're just driving around the tunnel. Ryan Day's in a cart with Will Howard and some of the other players, and there's a woman driving the cart, and she's trying to get them from point A to point B, and she's making the turn in the corner, and she hits the gas and runs right into the wall. You see Ryan Day in the video snaps back. He's looking around like, what the hell just happened? Security officers are around. They're trying to move the cart back. She's like, you know what? We're gonna walk. We're close enough. We're just gonna walk. Screw it. So, they all made, light fun of it afterwards. They interviewed her and everybody was obviously all right there. But for this week, for me, another instance where no one can seem to drive the damn golf carts correctly. We had an incident at the Olympics, last year, and now this. You got to get some new cart operators there for these big events. So this week for me.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
It's a funny one.
I was actually going to use that. I didn't think Control would want to make light of anything that happened on the national championship night. So, excuse me. The comments on that video, though, on Twitter are hysterical. I'm not going to repeat any of them because I don't want women that watch this show to feel any certain type of way, or
certain universities to feel a certain type of way.
Yeah, Alex had a good one, but I don't know if you saw on the actual national one. Alex was like the fourth comment down. It was like he's like this is something you would expect to see in Georgia, and it was so good. It was funny, but I don't have anything, so you can go. I'm rambling. Sorry.
So mine is it's one of my favorite coaches. It really is. But Dan Hurley had two really bad moments this week. Now I'm gonna give you the first moment is he yells at an official, gets caught on a mic. Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best effing coach in the country in the sport. And then when asked about it, like now, once again, you just said you're the best coach in the country. When asked about it, he goes, I wish they would put the camera on the other coach more. Dude, come on, Dan. And like today he made a little bit more light of it and kind of like I probably shouldn't have said that, but like whatever. But like, come on, Dan, you're better than that. You're the best college basketball coach in the country. Your team is not as good as they've been, as dominant as they've been in the last few years, and it's obviously unraveling you. You need to stay calm, stay composure. Tom Izzo has off years. Coach K had off years. Roy Williams had off years. You're allowed to have an off year, Dan. It's okay. But to scream at an official, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best effing coach in this sport. And then to question the reporters for asking you about it and say, I wish they would put the camera on the other coach more. Well, Dan, you just said you're the best effing coach in the sport, so why wouldn't we have the camera on you? Yeah, so for this week, it's Dan Hurley for two pretty stupid moments.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
I love that you use that, but at the same time, I'm with Dan. Talk your shit, Dan. You got 2 national championships. That's how you feel. Go ahead and pop off. Mick Cronin did it. UCLA. I know we talked about that. A few weeks ago. He's had other rants even since then as well. Obviously, as a head coach, you can't say those things, and I'm just kind of joking there. But as a fan of the game, Dan was talking his shit. I love that.
Hurley becomes like unhinged though. Like he looks like he's like one more remark away from the ref. Like he's like I'm just gonna go pick somebody and murder them. Like,
remind you
crazy.
He reminds me of Jim Harbaugh so much.
No, I think he's got that Bobby Knight in him.
See, that's who I would say. I feel like we're a bad traveling call away from some chairs being thrown. Like I agree with Control.
Hey,
look, bro, he loses his mind, man.
He does.
Like he was angry. Like how upset, pissed off you have to be. Like your team's not about to blow a lead, but like you're not even worried about it. Like you're ready just to chase the ref out on the court and tell him that you're the best effing coach in the country and not turn your back to him.
That's what makes it tough. He's not wrong. He said it, and those are the facts. There is not a coach in the country that's better than Dan Hurley.
All right, gentlemen. Any final thoughts?
No, I got nothing.
No, man. I mean, I can't believe we're at the end of football season already. I just can't.
Fly, Eagles, fly, and let's go Buffalo.
I'm sorry about the Eagles. I'll deal with what happens in the other game next week. I just need the Eagles. I need the Eagles not to screw this up because it's lining up to be like one of the most Eagles things ever to lose this game on Sunday.
Oh, bro, they better not lose it. They better not lose it. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 224 Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. That's Scholastic, Uncle Shallot, and the champs in the upper left corner. I had to give him last laugh. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are signing out.